Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Rage 2, Nightmare difficulty, no healing infusion walkthrough. This is going to be a single video of the entire game, from start to finish, covering only the main missions, and trimming out pretty much all of the intermediary moments of moving around the world. The only things you're going to really see in these videos, guys, are the moment-to-moment missions that need to be achieved, and there will be an emphasis on the combat, which you're watching right now. There's also going to be a bunch of modifiers that I abide by to make the game a little bit more fun, and you'll see the results of those as you play. But one of the things I have to talk about is the particular quality of this video. So, for the people that are a bit more observant, who've been playing a lot of Rage, you might notice that the screen's a little bit zoomed in. And it's zoomed in because I could not record this game in a fashion that would reflect what I wanted to do with it and a quality that it deserves. And I couldn't do that because of the way that the Vulkan API, that particular piece of rendering that they use for this game, it conflicts with OBS in a few ways unless you have an internal capture device, which I don't have. I actually use an external one. And because of this, you can't see the footage at all. And I tried several different things, a majority of different things that I've messed with in the past, all kind of software programs, all kind of capture programs, a whole host of technologies to see if I could make it work, and almost none of them did. None of them recorded it to the quality that I wanted, and this was about the best that I could do. So, what I ended up doing in the end is I'm playing in windowed mode, because borderless windowed mode did not work, neither did full screen. I personally cannot usually play in windowed mode. I think it's for when you're watching a TV show and you need to grind something, and very little else. When it comes to actually paying attention and trying to do well, full screen is the way to go. You'll have a more solid frame rate, there'll be certain things that just work better. It's just the way to play video games in almost an objective opinion, because it just makes them work better on PC. Outside of a few examples which could be used in the contrary. So I went with windowed mode, and then I hid my taskbar at the bottom of my screen because the taskbar covered up the HP. It covered up the entire lower bottom because that's what a taskbar does. So what happened is every time I aim downwards, my cursor can leave the game. And when it leaves the game, I can open up all kinds of things on my desktop, and of course you see my taskbar rise. So if at any moment when you're watching this walkthrough, if you see my taskbar and then the footage looks a little like jumpy, it's me editing out essentially the game pausing itself and me opening up the fucking clock or Windows Photoshop or whatever, you know. All kinds of bizarre things were opened, and it made it much more difficult to record. Because my playstyle in Rage 2 is a playstyle that I recommend everybody try, which is the idea of trying to be as aggressive as you can, because you have a lot of tools that will enable you to do this. And that is 1000% contradicted by if I'm aiming down and I end up going to my taskbar, it ends up messing up what I'm doing. But even in such awkward environments, I was able to make this video, and hopefully if you're coming here because you're stuck and you need a little bit of guidance, I can perhaps give you a couple of helpful hints and tips that might improve your gameplay or just make you a little bit more confident in what you're doing. So this is Rage 2, and there is the first of our transitions away from some massive exposition at the end of that particular sequence. And now we are moving forward and going towards the Presidio, where we're going to get a whole bunch more exposition that I'm going to trim out. So Rage 2 is a fusion of two different developers coming together, combining an open world with first-person shooting mechanics. Whenever you are shooting in Rage 2, it is a very fun game with a very sharp and well-designed balance to it. Whenever you're doing everything else, it's not quite to the same level or quality, in my opinion. Luckily, I've kind of crystallized this experience into all the shooting, which is where Rage really shines. And the mobility that you can get in this game, when combined with the devastation of your arsenal, is going to make you a very capable killing machine. And even the pistol is good enough to get this done. So for the run of this walkthrough, I'm going to be using two weapons. I'm going to be using the assault rifle that the game starts you with, and I'm going to be using the shotgun. I didn't have to use the shotgun, and I wasn't going to, but just for a little bit of diversity, so it wasn't just the assault rifle, I decided to throw it in there. But one of my restrictions is going to be upgrading. I will only be upgrading one gun, which will be the assault rifle. If you upgrade the assault rifle, you literally do not need anything else because it's that good. It is a very capable machine. It is so good. It is willfully good, and you're about to find out what the assault rifle is capable of as we come to this first roadblock, which is one of the foothills in our story as we go forward here, because this particular road choker, as it's called, is one of the ones pretty much everybody's going to have to face, and it's going to introduce you to the concept of how this game works. But this particular sequence has a trigger as we push up that makes all of the bad people spawn on this balcony and then to the left of us. The game world will litter explosive barrels everywhere. You want to use this to your advantage. And the greatest part about Rage 2's design is that almost everything the enemies do is projectile. And in the world of first-person shooters, there are two design philosophies fundamentally for the bullets in the games. There is hit scan and there is projectile. Your gun, for the most part, feels like it's hit scan. When you put your reticle on an enemy and you press the trigger, you will hit them immediately. You don't have to wait for the bullet to move, you just hit them, right? They don't. Their bullets are projectile, so their bullets take time to get to their target. And because of the way that this has been balanced, you can literally dodge bullets. Rage 2, even on Nightmare, is not a very challenging game. It can be if you're playing correctly or if you get overwhelmed, because you will die very quickly in this game. But if you understand the tools of how to stay alive, and if you understand that every gun that gets fired in your direction can feasibly be ducked, dodged, dashed past, ran around, jumped from, then it opens up a whole new world of possibilities for your mobility and for your lethality, which are the two things I'm going to hopefully be combining to get the best results here. But on top of that, because every gunshot that's fired your way gives the player and affords them the function to dodge it, it means that you can then focus on being way closer to enemies than you normally would. However, this lends itself really gracefully into the healing system that's found within Rage, which is known as its Feltrite, which are these crystals or these cores that fall out of the enemies and can be found in the environment, that if you go through them, you will regenerate HP. And when you kill people in this game with your combo meter raised, they will drop more Feltrite. This is essentially the basics of the dance that is fighting in this game. You will kill things, raise your combo, and when they die, they will keep you alive. And if you're aggressive and accurate enough, you can use this to just decimate an entire area, an entire city, an entire village, any mission objective, and have a lot of fun with it, because everything dies in 1 or 2 bullets if you place them in the right places, outside of a couple of glitches, and for instance the Authority Sentry is a little bit more durable, but that's a side mission that we'll be taking on, so that later on in the game, when we are tasked with raising some allegiances between the main factions, we don't have to do too many in that moment because we'll be ticking them off along the way. But this encampment over here is an area that's guarding an arc, and this arc gives us an ability that I want, which is a double jump. There are a few abilities in this game that I am very fond of. One of them is the slam. The slam is one of the most powerful moves in the game, I recommend it highly. But because I wanted to make the game a little bit more difficult, I decided not to use the slam because it is so very good. And it was my intentions to do something perhaps like no upgrade, to make it a bit more taxing, and maybe focus on the gunplay so that I could get through with the base amount of tools at my disposal. But a lot of the tools that I really like and personally find to be mandatory are hidden behind several tertiary tools. So the abilities that I would very much recommend are the ones that I'm going to be moving towards, which is I like to be able to run 30% faster, and I like to be able to aim while moving and jumping and interacting with like zip lines with more accuracy. Those two things enable me to run around jumping and shooting and killing people very effective, and it lets me be aggressive and mobile, and it makes the gameplay a little bit more enjoyable than watching me just head glitch this roof and shoot these people from a distance because it's very safe. However, to get to them, you have to unlock their hierarchies, and to do that, you're going to be buying a lot of things you don't necessarily need. Fortunately, there's a lot of skills in this game that will just passively augment other features and will benefit you overall, so there's no such thing really as a bad skill. There are just a bunch of things you could potentially do without. And a particular piece of strategy that I recommend you do as well is what I did just then. There's an ability in this game that enables you to use your powers, and to do it you hold a button that brings up this useful X-ray vision that lets you see enemies highlighted through geometry. You don't have to use the abilities when you hold this, you can just use it as a piece of heads-up technology to help you see what the battlefield is happening, where people are, and find threats. Using that mode for threat detection is one of the safest ways to play the game. Outside of the strategies I'm doing right now, where I'm really not being too aggressive at all. This is one of the safest fights in the run, guys, so fear not, they won't all be as safe as this. But the hit marker is very useful as well. Did you notice how when we were shooting that guy, it was yellow? Well, yellow means that he's wearing armor, and armor has to be hit quite a lot of times for anything to go through it and for the damage to fully register, so you have to shoot armored people a decent amount. Fortunately, you won't come across too much of that outside of some unique circumstances, and most of the enemies react really well to being shot, and then you can clean them up in a couple of rounds if you know where to shoot. You'll get a red skull for doing so, telling you that you either got a headshot or that you just killed them, and then sometimes you even get a little bit of slow motion depending on if you have the skill to shoot people who do not know where you are. But once you've done this, you are now able to do the second aspect of Rage that is going to be one of the things you do the most of, which is the looting. Every one of these areas has a whole host of things to pick up, from arc chests to storage containers to data files, and all of these things compound into making your character stronger, better, faster, and enhancing his resources. All of this is worth doing. I'm not going to go too nuts on doing all of this for obvious reasons. You don't need to see this. You don't need to see me do this. You don't need any help with this. You guys can be doing it on your own runs and making a super badass that makes the game considerably easier, right? For the purpose of this, it's going to be bare minimum. And I say that as a warning too, because there are a lot of guns in this game that are actually really, really awesome, but the game does not mandate that you get them. One of the stranger features of Rage 2 is that its sandbox seems to justify itself and hide features more so than it does enrich features, and I don't particularly like that personally. It definitely leads credence to the idea that this world is quite empty and not filled with that much interesting things happening. However, the weapons that you get from the arcs are very much worth your time and attention, and they will make a game that is already quite simple even simpler. Which definitely makes me lament a few things. I mourn the fact that the first Rage had a difficulty known as Nightmare and an achievement for doing it, because it meant that players would force themselves outside of their comfort zone to play that game. And if you're wondering why I'm covering this, I actually covered the first Rage all the way back when it came out on my channel, and I had a lot of fun with that game because it was a very difficult game. Also, when you come back here, you're going to trigger a spawn, and I didn't really want to deal with this, so I'm going to do my best attempt at subterfuge, and then how this grenade doesn't hit me coming up, I will never know. Apparently your own grenades are a safe zone for you, but it enables me to use our newly acquired double jump to proceed onwards to get back to our truck, and then I will be trimming out the vehicle sequences so that we can get to the objectives. Our objectives right now are to rendezvous with 3 of the contacts that the game wants us to do missions for, and we're going to be doing exactly that. There is a pink motif in this game. If you're ever wondering about what something is or what is important, the best way to look at it is if it's pink, it's drawing your eye and there might be something to it. It's how they hide the chests, it's how they hide a lot of things like the Feltrite stores that I just blew up a moment ago. But we're currently going and looking for John Marshall in Gun Barrel, which is where we are right now. These are the town sections in Rage 2. There's a lot of people you can talk in here and a lot of distractions to busy yourself with, but once again, you won't see any of that. This is a walkthrough to get you through the main missions, so the main missions are what I'm going to be focusing on. And there are a couple of moments where I do deviate a little bit and go to the shops, but fundamentally, there's not too much that you need to get from the shops, so there's nothing too specific that I have to tell you to buy. It gives you the ability to craft things on the fly, like the wing sticks or the grenades if you want to do that. It also gives you the tools and components to do some upgrades. A lot of the upgrades in this game are very safe and very standard. They increase your magazine capacity, your reload speeds, things of that nature. There's nothing too exotic or elegant or worthwhile, but it will all help if you're willing to pursue it. And if you're looking to beat the game, it's going to make it that even more enjoyable because you've got more tools at your arsenal. There are a lot of shops though, and I do think the shops do a great job in this game of kind of hiding the purpose of a lot of the things that they do, because there's a lot of UIs, and the UIs are quite creative and not always that informative, and it's one of those interesting moments where sometimes you can spend more time staring at things and not really understanding what's expected. Luckily, the only thing that I would recommend is the Butcher, because the Butcher gives you the ability to get a passive damage bonus, and I'm definitely going to be saving my abilities to do that. But this is a video game, and thus we are entering the sewers. Video games just can't move away from this particular trope. It is a cliche that we will never see an end of. And this area is very dark too, so I did try to increase the brightness a little bit when I was playing, but we're also going to be introduced now to the mutants. And if you've made it this far in the video, you've probably noticed that I don't ADS too much. This gun is so strong that its ADS and its hipfire are essentially identical. If you can put the dot on a bad guy, the bad guy will die. ADSing is only ever if you want a little bit extra zoom, or if you prefer it as a preference. I personally really like hipfiring, I'm just not that used to doing it, so when a game gives me the opportunity to do it, I'm going to try to do it, because it gives me more of an FOV advantage. But this is one of the mandatory arcs as we move through this mission, as we investigate. This is going to give us the shotgun. You'll notice that I'm trimming out the training sequences, because personally I think they're unnecessary and a little bit long, and you're going to be doing them anyway, so you don't want to watch me do them because they're completely pointless. The main thing to get from those tutorials is that the guns generally have an interesting feature when you go into that special combat mode, that overdrive, and it will enable you to do a lot of damage. The shotgun in this game is very good. I would expect nothing less from id. It's exactly why you buy their games, it's exactly why you use their guns. This thing is going to one-tap pretty much everything we come across, and if you aim down the sights you will turn the spread of the shot into a slug, and the slug is a lot more accurate. However, it does not have the most range because of course it is a shotgun, even though in real life shotguns have a surprising amount of range thanks to Hollywood essentially seducing us into this notion that they don't hit anything when in reality they actually do. But there's going to be more of these creatures. These creatures are the exact same as they were in the first game. They run at you and swarm you, and they use their acrobatic movement as kind of a deterrent to getting shot, and then they overwhelm you when they're up close. If you get used to how the movement patterns work in Rage 2, you can preempt all of their movements and put them down very quickly. And if you shoot them, you'll usually knock them over, or interrupt them, or do something that makes it harder for them to do what they're doing. The crate just there was a supply crate that I broke. You'll notice on the left hand side of the screen we got a bunch of components. Those components will go towards crafting if you choose to utilise it. Additionally, you will also be harnessing a large amount of junk, and junk is literally junk. It is designed to be sold, and if you go to a vendor and you sell it, you can generally get a decent amount of money back and then use it to turn it into something good. If you indulge in the side quests, you'll find yourself with more junk than you know what to do with, and it really does add up, so it's definitely worth scavenging for every piece you can. And here's me trying to use the wing sticks a little bit more, but it's just not really working. The wing sticks are really cool in this game, but they're slow. You can lock onto enemies with them and all sorts of chaotic things. It leads to a much more creative fighting style than what you might watch in this guide. But when you kill mutants, they drop these things called mutant spores. You might have noticed there's like a squelchy noise when I'm stepping over the ruins of these once dastardly ugly bastards that are attacking me. That guy there as well is a portable bomb. Be very careful of him. One of the biggest dangers in this game is getting blown up by things like that. There are so many barrels, there are so many like gas propane tanks. The amount of times you'll kill somebody, set off an explosion, and then the whole room will just turn into goddamn Ragnarok for no reason. Well, even though there's a pretty good reason, but you didn't realise that there was that many barrels, and the next thing you know, you've got no eyebrows and no HP, and you're pretty much going to die. So you have to be really careful with it. But right there was a sack full of Feltrite. The Feltrite is a currency for upgrades, and it's also a healing tool, so make sure you get familiar with it. Here's me having trouble with basic navigation. Gotta love it. But the shotgun is superb. And that right there was me using the dash, which I should probably talk about before I forget. So you get access to a dash, and you can upgrade it. Because I'm avoiding upgrades for as much as I can to make the game a little bit more interesting, I won't be upgrading the dash, but it has to be said, it's really, really strong and really, really broken. It completely stops people shooting at you, and it gets you around all kinds of moves that can be quite difficult to dodge without. The only time that I'm probably going to permit myself to use it is if I'm up against somebody with a rocket launcher or up against a boss type creature, because sometimes jumping and strafing aren't enough. But I would advise you to check out the dash and see what you can do with it, because I know it's good, I just don't particularly like the way it works when you first get it. But another room here, as you've noticed guys, at the top of the screen there is a wonderful destination objective bar up there that gives you a compass and tells you where enemies are. It's a nice tool for heads up play. It's the closest thing you have to a radar, and it's invaluable for understanding danger. One of the things we seem to take for granted in video games is all of the visual language that they give us. This visual language is so important at understanding where you are in the world and how much danger you're in, that I feel like they don't get enough credit for these systems when they're done well in a game. And this is by no means an original idea, and I've seen many of these bars in many video games, but it certainly helps, and I'm very grateful for it, because when I turn a corner, if I see any red diamonds on there, I know there's bad guys, I know exactly what I'm getting myself into, and it's one of those things that can save your life, because you might not see the enemy that's coming for you, but that thing will display it, and it's your eyes, it's the eyes in your back, so use it as best as you can. And this room coming up here is an interesting one because it wants you to press this valve, and then it wants you to survive. You can run around killing things, there's a lot of enemies, but I'm going to recommend here that you just kind of avoid all the normal dudes, and then kill this Abaddon Warhead guy. Who I didn't even know that was his name, that might be the first time I've seen this guy's name. And I'm going to go into the overdrive mode, and just show you how wonderfully powerful it is. A very strong mode, especially when you upgrade it. But if you come up here, there are two switches across a narrow bridge. The bridge is kind of disconnected, but you can jump across it. And the enemies can jump up onto the bridge, but it seems like a pretty safe place. So if you want to stay up here and run between the both sides, the enemies have a harder time navigating towards you than they do when you're on the ground. Being mobile is obviously a really good idea, especially in this game where you are so powerful when you move. But later on there's going to be a reboot setting that's coming up to our left. I didn't realise that when you interact with things you weren't invincible, so I'm going to touch this and I'm going to take damage. So unfortunately I got hit just then and it put me down to 85 HP, but that's not bad at all when you think about it. A hardest difficulty and I took 15 damage off a smack, that's not bad at all. But once you've done that, you can skip this entire sequence and then get the hell out of dodge. And when the objective updates, you'll know exactly where that is, and then all you do is run towards the diamond. This is a really intimidating sequence, because if you've just started playing, you don't have many upgrades, you don't have the familiarity with the game yet, and you'll end up bumping into certain scenarios where getting cornered by these creatures can be a death sentence. But hit that elevator. I'm going to save you all of the waiting that this game loves to just share, and I have no idea why it does. There are a lot of times you're going to spend masking load times in elevators and things of that nature, and it makes me think of Mass Effect 1, and it makes me wonder why the developers think that hiding a load time in a boring elevator is any worse than staring at a dark screen that says loading on it. And it does lead us to an interesting conversation, doesn't it, about loading. In this sequence right now, we're going to be talking to good old Johnny Boy here. He's going to give us some updates to our objectives, and then we're going to be moving on to the next person we need to meet. He's also going to give us access to a skill tree, which is going to give us some really, really cool abilities, so I recommend that you take note of the ones you like and pick them up. But one of the problems this game has is it's buggy as fuck. So there are times when you talk to people and no dialogue plays, none of the scripted interaction happens, and then the objective updates as if you had the scripted interaction, and then you can leave, but nothing happens sometimes. So if you go towards somebody, try to talk to them and nothing's happening, it's not your fault, dude, it's just this game has problems. And it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of love that's been put into it, and the shooting in this game is superb. I also think the balance is almost too good, which is something I'm going to talk about throughout this walkthrough. But let's go off on the loading tangent. How do you feel about loading, ladies and gentlemen? Do you remember the days of the Commodore 64 where you sat there for like 25 minutes for the tape to work and then the game came on and it crashed on the first screen? And then you repeated that several times until you got finally fed up? Because I do. Those were the days, weren't they? That's all we had, that's all we knew. And then the old PlayStation load times. Remember those bad boys? Sitting there listening to that machine read that disc and it sounded like it was setting it on fire. And you were worried it was going to crash, you were worried it wasn't going to work, you were worried something was going to, you know, something somewhere in the machine was going to fail. We've just arrived in Wellspring. There was me trimming out the driving. We're now going to go for Lusum Hagar, and there's going to be a shootout coming up here. Some wonderful colours here as well. This game has got a really nice eye for colour, and I appreciate a colourful post-apocalypse. But I think loading, if you can reduce it with a big load at the start and then less loads throughout, I think that's probably the best one out of all of the methods that we've got, because hiding loading behind unskippable cutscenes, behind ridiculous arbitrary like long corridors with no detail, behind elevators that move slower than you would think they would move considering we're in an apocalypse. Like, there are so many gradual ways that we've discovered to kind of mask loading, and so many of them aren't very good. But when this kicks off, if you jump up onto this balcony, you're going to get assailed by these Ravagers. I don't actually know much of the names in this game, so I'm just going to call them Scrubbers that I'm going to shoot in the face. But there's a few of them. Luckily, the shotgun is so powerful that I can make quick work of them. And then once you've killed all the ones in the main area, there's these guys that come on the lift. And then once they've been felled, you can ride the lift up into the office. And then we'll carry on our little bloodfest there. A lot of these fights are going to be over quite quickly, because if you're aggressive in this game, you are unkillable. It's really interesting. But here's the elevator being skipped out. I'm going to come over here for cover, because there's a lot of enemies here that fan out all around you. The first time I did this sequence, I was behind the desk strafing, and it worked pretty well. But for this one, I wanted to give people a position where they would be kind of safer, and this was the safest place I could find from taking a stray bullet. But there's still people that will rush you like these guys, and luckily, they're not very accurate on that first bullet, so I didn't take any damage. But do you see how powerful this gun is? We've only just begun, and this gun feels immeasurably satisfying. It is so good to do. I just really wish it didn't look the way it looks, because I personally think it's a very ugly gun to stare at. Luckily, I'm going to save some money and buy a camouflage for it that makes it look a little bit less like it looks. And I can definitely... And that was a mistake just then, guys. I thought I had grenades on. If you pre-grenade the front of that door when they rush in, you can kill nearly all of them, and it ends it immediately. But I ended up throwing a wind stick because I forgot to change it. And there you go. Intruders are killed, the mayor's impressed, and now we can talk to her and get to our next objective. And there's a couple of things to pick up in this room. You'll notice I'm picking up data pads when I go along. I'm doing that because it's giving me Kavasa upgrade points, which will enable me to get to the end of the game. But once the conversation's over, she's going to give us a gizmo that we need to stick into a large office from a large man. But in order to do that, we have to take part in two interesting areas of the game, which are throwbacks to previous Rage mechanics. So you might remember that there was something called the Wasteland Celebrity in the last game, where you went and you had to do a series of killing rooms, and it was being filmed and you became a celebrity. Same deal here, pretty much. It is the Mutant Bash TV, they call it. And they've also got the Chaz Car Derby. I don't know if the driving was the same in the previous game, because I don't remember it. I hated it personally. But fortunately in this, you only have to do one drive. One mandatory race, I should say. And the game is so buggy, you can actually lose the race when you win it. Because I've had this happen to me. I had this happen on my first practice run of the game. So when you're racing, if it says that you're in second place and there's no one in front of you, and the person who is apparently in front of you is so far ahead, it's just completely unnatural and doesn't make any sense. It means that your game is bugged out, and you're actually driving against nobody and losing for no real reason. This is not a good thing to happen, but it does happen, and if it does happen, I recommend that you restart immediately. There's no reason to finish the race. The race itself is exactly what it is. If you like it, you'll have fun. If you don't, it'll be tedious. But doing it when there's no chance of winning is definitely tedious regardless. But here we go. Mutant Bash TV is the one we're going to go for first. As you can see, there are these spiral pillars. These are going to lower, and on top of them there are going to be mutants that throw flames at you. You want to circle the room, take out each of the mutants, and then there's going to be plenty more dropping in to make it a bit more exciting. The last time I did this, I had the increased movement speed, and it was a lot easier. But with base movement, this room and the rooms that follow are going to get a little bit hectic unless you know the spawns really well. But I'm going to try my best to get it done. But you need to prioritise the guys on the pillars. If they throw the shit at you, it leads to all kinds of strange events, but clean up the standard mutants with your hipfire, get your headshots, and then proceed onwards. As the music blares in the background and we get to stare at Rage's interesting aesthetic. By this point you've probably realised I'm playing this on PC, The game runs surprisingly well on PC. I was quite worried coming off of Metro Exodus, but I had no problems with the performance in this game outside of when I was driving too fast. Those were the only times where I got any stutters in the game at all. And be careful of that as well. I got too close to that mutant and his explosion hurt me. But this first room is pretty simple stuff. If you can do the mission we just did in the sewers, this one's going to be fine. And there are coins that get dropped here, these Monster Bash coins. Depending on how many Monster Bash coins you have, depends on the prizes you can buy at the end. I recommend you pick up as many as you can because it's going to augment your ability to get some upgrades for your weapons earlier than you might normally do so. Then again, if you're playing Rage 2 the way I think it was intended, you're probably going to be doing a lot of the side missions, and if you do those, you're going to be loaded anyway. But here we go, round 2. So we have an electrified floor, and we have a limpet mine swinging on a pendulum that is somehow conducting the electricity. So it's kind of all the worst parts of the Bible coalesced. However, we have an id Software shotgun, which generally means that anybody that stands in front of it is about to get shit on. But look how good this gun is. It's just point and shoot, and it feels wonderfully satisfying. It makes this game feel a little bit polarizing because the shooting is so fantastic and the balance is so superb, but then a lot of the other features are kind of a buggy mess, uninspired and not very fun. But this shit right here, this is definitely, if I had the movement speed right now, this would be even sexier, because that 30% running speed increase, it makes the game so much faster. And I love fast games, guys. I can't stand slow games. They just bug me. I like it when you have... I mean, if you have the option to be slow, that's fine. But also give me the option to be fast. Like, I want to be quick. I want to be lethal. And this game really gives me that power fantasy, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And it's one of the reasons I'm covering it, because there's no achievement for doing Nightmare. Not many people will. And then when you try it yourself, you'll realise it's not very difficult either. But it's really fun, and I want to represent it on my channel, so if you're a big fan of Rage, or even if you're struggling, I hope I can help you out with these videos. So, piece of advice here, guys, the lighting here is a pain in the ass because it helps blind you, but if you look at these pipes, you can see these enemies before they land, and you can kill them before they've spawned fully. And it reminds me of Gears of War Wretches. If you knew the Wretches spawn points, you could oftentimes clip them before they got a chance to do anything. And this is the same idea. See them on the pipes, put them down. The problem here is the audio is quite difficult to pick up on to hear where people are coming from. And then the lights make it difficult to spot the details. And you can't shoot the lights, unfortunately, which is something I wish that games would embrace a bit more. But not that you need to, because I'm doing a decent enough job of cleaning up these enemies. And this is a completely unupgraded shotgun, guys, if you're wondering. I haven't put a single point into this and it's still God tier. Speaking of God tier, as is this music, there's some really nice touches in Rage 2. A lot of people are calling it average, aren't they? As a pun on the name of it. Which is unfortunate, because the shooting is exceptional. Ooh, there it was. You've got to be real careful shooting these guys too close. Plenty of enemies dropping in here. I do like how exciting it gets, though. Lots of mutants to contend with, but do you see everything flying out of them when we shoot them? Traditionally that would be Feltrite, but in this sequence it's the monster cache, essentially. There are also a few Infusions you can use for different features that will enable you to overdrive and use your abilities a little bit quicker, I think, and give you faster cooldowns. I've never used those, so I'm not even all that certain on how good they are or how effective they are, but they're probably very powerful. But there you go, second room is down, right? Second, third room, I don't know how many that's been. Fourth room, fifth room? Yeah, this is the final room. This is the fourth and final room, the after party ambush zone. So, fantastic music, nice aesthetic, and it's time to get violent. So it immediately begins with a bunch of melee mutants. Movement here is going to be key to stop them from hitting you because it's very balanced. The enemies are oftentimes a little bit too fair, which is not something I get to say too often. When do you usually hear me call enemies too fair? It's quite rare, right? The only times the enemies in this game have felt even remotely close to cheesy is when a boss glitched out on me and it was almost nigh unkillable. But other than that, I think they managed such a great level of balance, but I think it hurt the game. But here we go with more of these guys. Also, those red lights that are being shelled there in all of the quadrants, the compass points of the room. You need to be careful when you're near those because things get quite hectic. But just keep on circling, keep safe, keep your HP up, keep your shotgun loaded, and then be careful of that. And somebody smacked me up the bumhole just then, so be careful of him as well. When you get hit in this game, it slows you down. Additionally, if you reload at times when you don't have a speed boost, that will slow you down too. But this platform is now going to lower, and there's going to be a big fella on it, so I'm going to use my overdrive mode on the big fellow. I recommend you use overdrive as much as you want. I don't use it because I kind of enjoy the game when I'm just running around and shooting, and the overdrive mode is incredibly powerful, so it kind of already besmirches a game that's far too balanced as it is. But for people like this, it's perfect for just putting him down in seconds. I mean, look at that. Insanity, right? And there you go, Mutant Bash is done. Get your reward, spend your coins, and then let's get to that driving mission. But when I say that I think Rage 2 is too balanced, it's a compliment, it's also a criticism. Anybody who's made anything will know that there are both pros and cons to the thing that they've made. There are qualities and there are detriments, right? Everything has that. Imperfections and perfections. It's what makes things stand out. It's what makes things unique. You can look at many games that you love, that you've been playing for years, that you will continue to play for years, and if you analyse it, you will see just as many flaws as you will qualities, and some of those flaws will even have become qualities because their particular type of jank was something that you grew to really enjoy. Difficulty is no different to this. A lot of the times a good difficulty has to be bullshit so that it toes that line of having fairness and having extreme challenge. Challenging is difficult to make. Making something fair and difficult is the hardest balance ever, and it's so tough to do that few developers will ever do it. It's very difficult to make something hard and difficult and to make the player lose while still feeling that there is fairness there. Because it's an ego trip, isn't it, when you lose? When you lose against something, it comes across as a projection. Your first response is usually something along the lines of, that was bullshit, I shouldn't have lost, why did I lose, it wasn't me, X insert this, Darkside Phil personified, right? And it's a natural reaction. It's one of those things. However, you need a little bit of bullshit to make the fairness seem so fair. It's the idea of having sweet without sour. It's the idea of having, love without hate, good without evil. You need that polarity to give you both of those poles so that you have a scale to measure with. And Rage 2 is too balanced. The whole game is too balanced. And it's too balanced because you are too powerful, too capable, even from the very beginning. So your character is super capable, and the opponents are super fair in how they engage you, in how they function, in how they spawn, in the ratio that they are delivered to the player. There are few situations in this game where enemies are presented to you in such a fashion and such a means that it will push you outside of your comfort zone. It just kind of doesn't happen. The only time it happens is if you play too aggressively, or if perhaps you do some side mission that's a little bit higher level than you, and then you feel that difference between you and them. And at the very beginning of Rage 2, I took on an environment which was a bunch of immortals, and they were tier 8. Rank 8 difficulty, a fortification full of immortals with armor on, and they were killing me in like 3 bullets. They were killing me really quickly, and I wasn't killing them quick at all, and I didn't know how to play the game. And I felt like that area was really, really difficult, because it was just like, oh my gosh, this thing is lethal, and they're taking a beating. But when I looked back on what I'd done, I died once to a shotgun up close, which I should have died because it's the hardest difficulty. And I cleared the entire area with 1 death at the beginning of the game with 0 experience. I then came back on my second run and cleared the area without ever being in danger because I knew how to play the game. Because the enemies posed no threat to me because of how capable my character is. And it goes back to the projectile nature of the attacks. Most of the attacks in this game can be dodged, and it makes it wonderful, because if you're skillful enough, you can avoid damage. most of the encounters in this game can be killed as they're spawning. So some of the most threatening enemies in the game can be murdered before they've attacked. It's things like this. There are so many parts of the design that make it really fair and really awesome, but if you are willing to play aggressive enough, you will completely circumvent the point where they become a threat and where they are meant to challenge you as a player. And when you do that, there's no challenge left to be had. And that's the biggest problem that Rage 2 has. Rage 2 is a game that is just simply too fair. It's a game that has wonderful mechanics that complement it in such a way that it could have been way harder than it is. And here's a couple of reasons as to why. So, think of how many ways you can heal in this game. Scattered around the environment, there are Feltrite boxes that heal you. When you kill an enemy, it heals you. When you use an infusion, it heals you. When you use your overdrive with certain upgrades, they heal you. There's so many ways to stay alive in this game. Like, even if you die, let's just say the stars and the planets align and you die, you can get an ability that defibs you and brings you back. You are so strong, and the enemies do not cheap shot. Like, look at this guy, for instance. We have a boss coming up. This is Jumbo. I'm going to throw a bunch of spawn grenades, I'm going to shoot him in the face, and he's half HP before he's even thrown a barrel. Half HP, hardest difficulty, he threw a barrel, I dodged away from his jump because it's got a big AoE, and then I'm shooting him, and moving away and shooting him, and Jumbo is dead. Jumbo did 2 attacks, that was it. Hardest difficulty, 2 attacks, never even touched me. I'm using an assault rifle, I'm not using anything too ridiculous, but everything in this game is ridiculous, so I guess I kind of am. And herein lies the problem with Rage. It's wonderfully fun, and you are wonderfully powerful, but the enemies are not going to challenge you unless you let them. And it's one of those things where I would love to redesign the difficulty, because I feel like there's a really difficult game here, and it's a difficulty that I would call both fair and fun. And let's face it, folks, if you've been with me a while, you've heard me talk about difficulty longer than some people have been playing video games. I don't often say fair and fun when it comes to difficulty, because they often are not either of those things. Oh, there's a weird thing that happened here as well. There should be 2 guys here, but they're not here. I reset this section to restart it again, and it despawned them. So that's something that's worth noting, actually, guys. If you're having difficulty, this game autosaves a ton, which just leads back into the balanced nature of it. The autosaves in this game are really generous and really fair. It's literally room to room, so if you fuck up, you can restart from where you died. It's beautiful checkpointing in many ways. There's only one checkpoint that's bad, and it's a glitch, like many other things in this game, which I'll talk about when we get to it. But another thing is, if you restart checkpoint, you will oftentimes despawn entire fights, which is not something I want to do because I'm a guide maker. I want to make the game really hard so I can help you, but it's just one of those necessary evils that sometimes happens. So if you're having problems with an environment or a fight, try getting into it, try getting a checkpoint, and then try respawning on a checkpoint to see what happens. You'd be surprised. But now we can move out of the sewer and then progress onwards and do what we came here to do, which is kick ass and look for bubblegum in a post-apocalypse, right? Also, the stuff on the shelves, guys, there's tons of loot to pick up that's going to go towards refilling ammunition and all the kind of things you can do in Rage 2. Sometimes it can be quite tough to see it in the dark, and sometimes it can be quite tough to pick it up too. You have to be quite accurate with where you click, which I'm not too used to. So if you ever see me like trying to do looting really quick and then fucking it up and having to go back, it's a little bit stricter than you'd think. But pushing forward here in the bowels of Wellspring, a bunch more of the standard raiders are going to be turning up. But the raiders all have this problem. If they rush you, they will all move towards a certain point close enough to get into a position to attack. And when they do that, you can just pepper them down and throw grenades. One of the cool things about this game is when you shoot enemies, they react realistically, so they will always react to a bullet. They will never just hyper armor and shrug it off, and you can learn their animations when you shoot them, so that you know where they're going to go, and you can put a bullet in their face. This was present in Rage, the original, as well, so it's nice to see that mechanic come back. But do you see what I mean, guys? You're like, I'm a death machine using the gun you start the game with, and intentionally avoiding abilities. Like, I don't even have access to the shatter move yet or any of that stuff, because I'm trying to do this as raw as I can in the traditional Darkside Phil way. Raw gameplay, folks. But this is how strong you are. And that's what makes it so disappointing, doesn't it? You've got all these cool guns, you've got this really cool shooting, and then the game itself kind of holds back. The slow motion you're seeing here is I'm killing people when they're unaware. If you kill someone when they're unaware, you get a slow motion if you've got that particular upgrade, which I have. And then from then you can chain it to other people. It's too short, unfortunately, to chain a full room. You would have to literally be so close to everybody that you can see them all in that one moment without having to move. If you have to move, you move too slow to get the next kill. But I reckon somebody creative is going to use that to make some cool videos of them clearing entire camps with the slow-mo. And personally, I thought this game was going to have that as a mechanic. I thought slow motion would be a given. When I think of creative abilities in first-person shooters, I think of fear and I think of bullet time. However, can you imagine if this game had slow-mo? Can you imagine how much fucking easier it would be? To which I have to speak about that as well. Whenever I call something easy, guys, if you're having a tough time and you're coming on this and I'm offending you, I never mean to offend with that. I'm just trying to look at it from as an objective perspective. And I know it's very difficult to do that because we all have inherent bias, but if I compare the measure of challenge that's present in this game to something, for instance, like Wolfenstein that I played quite recently that's got a very similar engine to this, that's you know, got that same Vulkan API that makes capturing it so difficult for me from Bethesda, Wolfenstein 2 is an incredibly difficult game compared to this. But at the same time, it's not as fair and it's not as fun in its shooting, I don't think. I think the shooting mechanics in this game are better, but I think Wolfenstein 2 is a better game because it's a better package and it offers more things as far as what a linear shooter should do. And I do personally believe that if this game was linear, it would be better because the linear parts are fantastic. This door is a death sentence too. For some reason, these enemies just keep on queuing up and I'm just going to keep on taking scalps if that's what they're willing to do. And then whenever I'm unsure about things, I open up that mode and then I look around. That mode has a secondary feature. It also attracts Feltrite towards you, which is pretty sweet. There's a guy over there peppering with shots, keep moving. Strafing and mobility are very strong in this game because of how fair it is. Like, look at that. If that was Wolfenstein, I've just died. Because they don't fuck about in that game. When they're at the side of you on Uber, you're done. You're just completely done. And then an elevator comes, there's a couple of people. If you throw a grenade, you can get them nice and early. And there you go. One person left, and we've cleared out this entire environment. And I had a lot of fun doing it too. One of the things I want to repeat as much as I can is just how much fun this game is. But I cannot argue that the ambitions that it takes leave it feeling just simply insufficient. Such a huge world, such great mechanics, and it feels kind of squandered, doesn't it? And I'm actually surprised there's no co-op in this game, because it feels like it's built for it. It feels like that kind of game to me. Messing around with your friends, maybe it originally intended to work that way, but then they couldn't get the engine to work, who knows? But right now I'm going to be moving around and looting as much as I can. This is a really important part of building up future offense later on. And there we go. Back to the city. Return to Lusum and see what we get.
Make it quick, Ranger.
So as you see, guys, there's going to be a lot of creativity taken with the trimming out of moments you don't need to watch again. And then I'm going to show you the destination of the next journey, and then we're going to be moving towards it. On our way to that particular waypoint, I ended up bumping into an authority sentry, and thus we're going to take on another one. These authority sentries only have, I think, 3 moves. They have a single huge laser, they have a barrage of lasers, and then they have the bunch of shockwaves that it does, these, that you jump over. The only other move that you'll see is potentially the most dangerous move, and it's when it does an airdrop, but some of them don't seem to do it, and I don't know what dictates the airdrop. The problem with it is, it will put these holographic... This is it right now, see this? The problem with a move like this in first person is you cannot tell where all of those beacons are. So unless you stand in the middle of them and just hold your ground, you'll end up moving into another one by accident by trying to be defensive. So my piece of advice is to simply stand your ground and know that it's going to send shockwaves and then deal with the shockwaves. But this particular sentry is quite a tanky one. Hopefully I can put him down with a couple of quick shots. There we go. But if you stand your ground like this, you should be okay. And then we're going to teleport, in some ways, over to Kavassa's area. The ground control mission. So as you can see, already some of these creatures have turned up that are sent by the authority. We're going to put them down. This particular monster can be quite awkward to get headshots on because their head is quite evasive when they move and stuff. But they're so weak that if you hit them enough times, you'll put them down and get the kill anyway. Sometimes putting bullets down the range is the smartest choice. And then once you've done that, you'll hear the toll, and then you have to talk to Mr. Cactus, and he's going to open the drawbridge, and we can I don't know why I said it like that. We can talk to the scientist who returns from the first game. And this is a dude who glitches a lot as well, so you might get to see this firsthand. But here's the magic elevator when you press it and you teleport next to the dude. That's not how that works, but you understand what just happened there because it expedites the process. And then now we're going to be going all the way over to the ground control mission, which is an Eden Space Center. But before we do that, we have the fresh juice stop. So this is a level 4 area. We have to destroy 11 fuel containers, and when we start doing that, a lot of enemies are going to turn up. So this is when it begins. This is your first sample of the side missions. So how I like to do this is I generally scout the area a little bit, see what the environments are like, see if there's anything I can shoot and set some chaos off. And then once it starts, I like to stay in an area, moving back and forth, kind of baiting from behind. Mobility is going to be a big thing, but right now I still have, I think, the basic movement. Which, I can't tell if I've got the extra 30% yet, but you'll notice it when I do. Some of these areas as well have doors that the enemies can open that you can't seemingly open just yet. But just use your radar, spot those diamonds, and then just go to town killing them. One of the things I like the most about this game is that in most of these encounters, you don't have to fight wave after wave of enemies. There doesn't seem to be any respawning or spawns that happen. There's no cheesy, now everybody spawns behind you and gets a cheap hit. As I mentioned, guys, the people who are at the base present when you start it are the people that you kill, and then after that you've emptied it and it's good. Later on there are a couple of spawns, but the spawns are all so fair you can kill them before they've even finished standing up. But here are some of the gas that we have to shoot. Put a couple of shells in them, some pellets. Still a couple of guys still alive. I don't want to overextend. I shouldn't be using the shotgun at that range. But here we go, the assault rifle's back on. Use the corrugated corrugated fence in the cover. Clean up a couple new dudes. See if we can see anything. Nobody's come through this area yet. Nobody's trying to flank me. The mobility is so much fun in this game. And there you go, a couple guys just over here. Guy comes out, gets feathered with bullets. Couple guys on my left. One of them's coming out now. You'll normally find that the most aggressive ones are the ones with the shotgun and the ones that are armoured. Those ones love to get close. And then there's one who actually throws baseballs at you, and he bats them. He loves to get close as well. There are certain enemies that seem to never get close. They don't all have this priority to come towards the player and try and kill them. And there's a fight later on in this video that I wish they did it on, because it would make it much easier, but unfortunately they don't. But there goes that guy. When you've cleared out every enemy, you will see an animation play, which tells you that everybody is dead. On these missions, I think you have to blow up all of the explosives for that to happen, all of the fuel. But here's the door that you can open. That leads to that back area where we were all shooting a moment ago. There's an arc chest in here. And various things to pick up. But right now, I can't see any diamonds on my map. So I'm going to be a little tentative, but I'm going to hopefully finish off the objective. See if there's anything worth taking, and then I'm probably going to transition back to where we were headed originally, and there you go. Fresh juice stop is ours. There's your dollars. Seems kind of cheap for the bunch of scumbags we had to kill. And then here we go, ground control. The Eden Space Center, this is difficulty level 4, and this first encounter is probably the most difficult one because there's lots of enemies. However, this wall that I'm stood on can be really, really good for baiting people to come towards you, and then using it as a position of power. That person there has a rocket launcher, so be very careful of him. And be very careful of ambient explosions. Lots of things blow up in this game. He has a shotgun. That man there, fully armoured with a shotgun. He will do incredible damage if you let him. But we're not going to let him, and that's the beauty of this game, isn't it? But once again, guys, mobility, mobility, mobility. If you are moving, they will struggle to hit you. And they're pretty good with grenades as well. This game has a really cool mechanic of knocking grenades back to the people who throw them. But the grenades are so slow that I can almost not think of a single moment where you would ever need to do it. And it's unfortunate because I love the idea of it. I really do. See that person there? That person there is armoured and they have a shotgun. Anybody that gets that close with that much willingness needs to be stopped. Fortunately, this machine gun is ridiculous. It has no recoil. It has almost infinite range. Its damage over distance, the drop-off on its damage is pretty respectable. There's almost no situation in this game where this gun will not do you proud. It's kind of insane. It reminds me of the gun in Bulletstorm. And I kind of wish this game had a little bit more Bulletstorm in it, because the leash in Bulletstorm was sick. In this game, you have to slide into people to knock them up or do the slam, which is one of my biggest regrets of making these videos. I wish I could have shown you all the cool moves, but at the time I wanted to try and make something a bit more difficult, a bit more challenging for me as a player. But feel free to walk around, triggering the Feltrite, picking up as much as you can, getting the ammo crates. I really do enjoy scouring the battlefield in this game, because it's fun to pick things up. One of my personal pet peeves, I don't know if you share it, is that I don't think you should have to shoot a cardboard box more than once. Like, the wooden boxes and all the boxes should go down in one hit, because it just makes it feel more satisfying. But the amount of times you shoot the boxes and they take the bullets, it's like, what the fuck, dude? Why are these people not wearing these boxes if they're so good at dodging bullets?
Doctor,
and here we go, the Eden Center.
It's in ruins, and like you said, overrun.
So once you enter this area, as you progress through, you're going to be triggering a bunch of fights. The fights in here are all modest and pretty manageable except for one. One of them later on, which is pretty much the final fight of the area, is probably one of the most difficult fights in the game for one reason. And that reason is, the enemies do not rush you, and there are blinding lights that are stopping a position of power from being used. I cannot stand the personal design decision to put the lights where they've put it, but it's obviously intentional because if you could use that doorway, it would be far too strong. So I understand why they did it, I just don't like the particular way they did it. In my mind, the enemies should rush you, regardless of where you are. They should move into better positions and try to flank and try to put you down. But these guys, it has to be said, folks, the AI in this game is not bad, but it's not good either. And then that's an interesting thing, isn't it? You can actually leave the objective area, which I'm not a big fan of. This idea of instancing locations, very bizarre to me, but it happens. Anyhow, a couple of dudes up here to put down. So we're going to introduce them to the concept of how ridiculous this machine gun is. Always check your flank, always check your radar. Be careful of whatever happened to that person. Never a good way to go. But most importantly, just enjoy it, guys. The shooting in this game is superb. And I really hope the shooting in Doom Eternal is just as good as it was in the original, if not better. And then I hope that Doom Eternal gets the speed of this game when it comes to your mobility. If you could move in Doom like you move in this, I would be really happy with that game. And I want to be really happy with that game because I feel like when it comes to shooting, all of these id-designed shooters feel great. And that's the best thing about a video game. I played a game today called Code Vein. It was a network test and it comes out in about a month or two. And the game didn't feel good. Regardless of if I liked it, regardless of if it was fun, it didn't feel good. And when something doesn't feel good, I think it hurts everything else. But here we go. We've got some nice overdrive for this next room. Couple of headshots here. There's a person batting a grenade at me. Always fun to see as we move through this kitchen. I love how the visuals look in this game. It's got some really nice effects. There's the wing stick. Couple of quick cheeky headshots. That person fell down and I don't know why, but they're going to pay for it with their life. Lots of explosives in this game, lots of things blowing up all the time. Aggression, mobility, that's all you need to know, guys. Also, be careful of that. If you have the ability to knock grenades back, you can knock those battered projectiles back and it's really funny. But I don't think at this moment that I did. Oh, there we go, it happened. Did you see it? That was a moment where the game paused itself and I looked outside the game world and I had to remove it. Hopefully it wasn't too noticeable. Up we go, second floor. Couple guys here. In this wonderfully pink backdrop. with some great lighting. Happened again then, did you see it? There were a couple of parts of this game that were infuriating to record because I was fighting my own fucking desktop, and there's nothing worse. But I didn't want it to stop me from having fun with the game, you know? And the only reason that this is late is because of how many difficulties I've had both getting the gameplay and doing this commentary. There goes another guy after the zip line. I always wonder why enemies do that. Zip lines his way into death. What was he thinking, you know? Another guy there. See how quick he went down? Jesus Christ. His gun's too good. We're leading outside now onto the roof. A couple more people here. This is another one of those areas if you respawn. If you start and reload the checkpoint, you can despawn enemies, which I don't really agree with. Are they stealing TVs? What are they doing? It's like they're stealing CRT monitors. Who the fuck in the apocalypse needs a CRT monitor? What a beast. But you see what I mean? The enemies just don't stand a chance. It's crazy. You feel so strong in this game, which is a wonderful feeling. And it's definitely what they're going for because they want it to be fun, they want it to be powerful. But there comes a point where that power dynamic has to shift. And if it never shifts, you never feel vulnerable. And I can tell you guys, when I'm playing this game, I do not feel vulnerable. I feel like I can do absolutely everything. And it's great, you know. There's a cheeky guy hiding on the corner here. I don't know what he's doing, but it's not working. Shotgun's really good against the armor as well. Look at that. Good night. But another area that you might have noticed where the game's a little weaker too. This game has enemy diversity. You wouldn't think it though by the missions, because the main missions recycle a lot of the same enemies. So the person on the cover with the blue hair with the plaster on her face, you're going to kill her 1,000 times before you see the credits. You're going to see a lot of the immortals with the armor and the shotgun. You're going to see a lot of like the big zombie that turns up who's kind of a boss. You're going to see him all the time. You're going to see the same presets, but there are actually a lot of different enemies in the game. They're just hidden behind eclectic places in the map. And I really don't agree with it. But here is a fight that I was unable to do from a position of advantage, so instead I decided to do something stupid, which was, there's 50 enemies down here, I'm going to run into all of them and kill them all. And you're going to probably be thinking, well, this is the hardest difficulty, Chris, how the hell does this work? And remember when I said this game's a little bit too fair? You're kind of witnessing it right now. The enemies cannot hit me when I'm moving, because the game is balanced. It's balanced so elegantly, if you're fast, if you're lethal, you will heal before they can kill you. And it's insanity, and that's not even mentioning how quick it is to get overdrive back and then use that if you want to. But I would have made a pretty dramatic change. I would have made it so that there was an achievement and a trophy for beating Nightmare, and I would have made it a big one. I would have made it a gold. Hell, if I was in charge, it'd be a fucking platinum, because I can't stand those medals, you know me. As an achievement, I'd made it like 100, maybe 150. But here's how I'd change it fundamentally to begin with. When you get hit, it should take 50 to 75 damage. Depending on where you get hit, what you get hit by, all in moderation. If you do not die in this game from like 1 to 3 hits, you aren't on Nightmare. And if anything punches you, you should die. You make that one change, you have yourself an amazingly difficult but very fair video game. And that right there was me clicking out of the screen. That one change would complement everything, because you would really have to know what you were doing to avoid damage. But in this game, you can avoid damage, which is so rare and so awesome. And there's, hello Mr. Taskbar, motherfucker. Hello Mr. Taskbar. Look, I can't even look down in this elevator or it brings my taskbar up. What a beast. But that one change would enable the game to feel challenging while still adhering to just how wonderfully well balanced it is. You would have a well-balanced game where death was inevitable, where death was very difficult to avoid, but when you did it skillfully. And this is where you can get a shit checkpoint, by the way, folks. If you do not get a checkpoint at the beginning of this fight, you'll have to come all the way from the building where the explosion was, where we did the previous fight in the space center. I had that like 3 times, and I don't know why it happened, but I had a lot of bugs here when I was first playing. One of the bugs was this boss would not die. I shot every bullet in my gun into his little backpack, and it took like 5 clips for it to break his backpack, and then when I shot him in the chest, it didn't do any damage at all. And I used every bullet in every gun that I had, and I didn't even take his HP. However, when I recorded this, the game has been changed or nerfed or patched or whatever it is. Look how much damage I'm doing. I wish I'd recorded my first fight with this monster, because what I did to him just then took me all of my bullets, and I didn't even do that much damage. But where I'm standing here, guys, I did this intentionally. If you stand on this roof, you can do this guy without risk of the mob. The mobs will never shoot at you because they can never really see you. The only problem here is if you kill him too far to the left, you can't use the left-hand side of the roof to see his weak point. So I'm going to have to down this guy more times than necessary because I downed him in a bad location. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and wait for him to turn and then down him again, and this fucked up too. So what I should have done is wait for him to recover, wait for him to reposition, and then down him. And then you'll down him in a position where you can shoot it with complete immunity. That's the mistake that I made. But look how easy this guy is. The next time we face this guy, I'm going to kill him before he's had a chance to do anything. And you fight so many of these cyber crushers, and I don't know why, because they're shit. It's a terrible boss. It's just, there's just nothing to it. It's really, really lame. But now that you can see his little backpack, I can put some bullets on it. And now his HP is going to be his head, because his helmet breaks. And look how fast he dies. See that? Look how balanced that is. Have you ever seen a game on its hardest difficulty where you put 5 rounds in its face and it dies like that? Bear in mind, these people, I say these people, probably nothing to do with them, right? But id were the people that made Doom and Quake. These people made bosses that took everything you fucking had. You circle strafed for like 15 minutes shooting BFGs and they still came for you. Such an interesting change, isn't it? And I like it. I just think that boss should be more dangerous. If he dies that quickly, he should kill you instantly in anything he touches you with. Like, you cannot have a boss go down that quickly unless he is an absolute monster for killing you. And he's not, you know? And this all comes back to this observation of mine that I think that rage is too balanced. Which is an interesting conversation because it leads you to the counter-argument, doesn't it, of would you rather have a game be too balanced or badly balanced? Which is a really interesting pursuit, a really interesting avenue of discussion, because bad balance can sometimes be good. It might not be good in all the ways you want it to be good, but it can be good in a lot of other ways. Like some games that are absolutely beloved are beloved because they have shit balance, you know? Oh, interesting. Some rare footage of me accessing the shop. This is me to... Oh, I've left this in to remind you to sell junk. So selling junk is really important, guys, and you can sell it with him and potentially other vendors as well. Feel free to do that. I'm not really going to be the best person to tell you what to do when you're in the hubs, because I just didn't do any of this. I just spent more time just cruising around and having a good time and shooting people, because that's the part of the game I really enjoyed. But I came looking over here, found a data pad. I'm not entirely certain why I'm doing this. Maybe I got a bit distracted. It does happen. But then we'll be going back to the main missions in no time at all. Another data pad, always good. 10 more points for Kvasir, always what you should be working towards. But it is interesting, isn't it, the conceit of balance, and when balance is too good, whereas when balance is too bad. Like, did anybody play Quantum Break? Quantum Break is a game made by Remedy that suffers the same way that this game suffers. It has really, really fun combat, and it has really, really cool features, but the game is so easy because it's too fair. And I almost feel like a hypocrite saying that sometimes. What are we going to do next? Let's have a look. Are we going to do a bandit den? Is that the one I'm going to pick? A brief moment of indecision. Here we go, water pump. It begins. This is another one of the sandbox areas that we're going to be clearing out, and the battle begins. So, immediately get onto the roof. There's an armoured man there, be very careful of him. But you see that just then? See him trying to shoot me? It's so interesting. I love how well designed this game is. They needed a bit more Itagaki though, didn't they? They needed a little bit more aggression and a little bit more underhanded moves. It's so strange. But Quantum Break was a game that was very much like this. And it suffered because of it. And especially in today's generation of game design, we idolize difficulty. And I think it's a confused direction as well. I think it's a misunderstood appraisal of difficulty. We're looking at the wrong games, in my opinion. There are a lot of people that are playing things that From Software make, and they're thinking that it's redefining what it means to be challenging, when in reality, those games are some of the easiest games on the pantheon of most difficult games. Like, if you put these people on the original Ninja Gaiden on the SNES, I don't think they're ever going to say that Demon's Souls is difficult again when they get to the final boss and they have to do the fucking level again when they die, right? Or the full game again when they die, or whatever it was. Like, there is a level of difficulty that I just don't think a large majority of casual players have ever seen, ever come across, ever been experienced too. So these people are now getting into the Souls series and things of that nature, and they're coming into these games that are so punishing compared to what they used to, that it's getting this reputation that is not necessarily unearned, but perhaps not justified. And it leads you to conversations about difficulty with people who have never played difficult games. And oh, by the way, the transition just then, guys, that person does not show up on the radar. I spent about 5 minutes searching this entire area thinking everybody was dead, and he was alive, which is a glitch again, but what can you do? Anyhow, moving over to Gas Pass, we're going to be clearing out this zone too. So strap in, guys, get your favourite weapon, and let's cause some chaos, shall we? As I talk a little bit more about difficulty. World's little ironies as well. I'm having a lot of technical difficulties during this commentary. I've already lost a segment of it. I've had a spider drop on me during one part of it, which was nonsense. And then just then, it looked like Premiere had crashed. So I do apologise if any of the audio spikes and I jump tangents for no reason, but what can I say, guys? I have all the fortune when it comes to talking to myself for nearly 3 solid hours. But when I talk about difficulty a lot, I don't often get a chance to talk about fairness, because fairness is obviously something that is very, very subjective, and also very, very absent in a lot of difficult games. Some of my favourite difficult games toe the line of fairness to a degree which you could almost call it unfair. I go back to God Hand a lot with this. There are certain facets of God Hand that will always frustrate me and always make me wish they worked differently, but they never will. And there comes a point where you play it enough and you get used to it so that it doesn't bother you as much as it did, but I don't think that changes whether or not it's fundamentally flawed or fundamentally fair. Whereas when you look at Rage 2 and Quantum Break, these games are in many ways flawed because they are fair. And it leads you to the topic of, where do you draw the line, you know? Do you want a game that's too fair but then suffers because it doesn't have the challenge that you're looking for? Or do you want a game that is so willfully unfair it is nothing but always challenging? Where do you draw the line? Where is the happy medium? Where is the golden ratio? And I've been watching a guy called Godfather Dictator play a game called Ninja Gaiden 2 quite a lot recently. And if you know anything about Ninja Gaiden 2, Ninja Gaiden 2 is a game that most people who play it will come away from that game saying that it's cheap as balls. Because it is. But there are people who love that game who would probably defend a lot of those accusations of cheapness and fairness because they've been exposed to it for too long. One of the more difficult ways to really ascertain what you think is fair and what you think is unfair is by how you judge the metric of it. For some people, fairness is a very skewed concept, isn't it? For some people, fairness is using Vanilla Sagat in the original Street Fighter 4, a character that could counter-hit you with one move that went into his super, which then would kill you. And it was easy to do. Anybody could do it. Some people think playing as him is fair. There are people who think unless they play as Dan, that it's unfair to their opponent, you know. We have this wonderful bastardized notion of fairness. In Rage 2, I just feel like the enemies are at a disadvantage because of how capable the player can be, and they all play by these rules that make them very, very capable, but in small bursts. So, if you stand next to a shotgunner, you're dead. If you shoot the shotgunner, he will never ever recover in time to shoot you. If you keep shooting him, he will die before he has chance to shoot you. That's just the reality of the game. If the shotgunner could only be flinched once, and then afterwards he was guaranteed to retort, you would die a lot more in this game. But they don't work like that. They've enabled him to be constantly stunned because you're shooting him, and I think that's a wonderful design. However, if it didn't work that way, the game would be objectively harder. But would it be unfair at that point? That's the question, isn't it? Look at something like Call of Duty World at War. Call of Duty World at War is infamous for grenade spam. For enemies who have larger pockets than Mary Poppins' bag. In World Wars, throwing grenades. These men who carried nothing but 400 grenades to the front lines to fight for their countries, and then they did nothing but throw them on a loop ad nauseum. If you've never played World at War on Veteran, you have never experienced one of the most unusual and annoying facets of difficulty design. You just haven't. And I would go as far as to say that you're missing out, because you don't really understand how stupid that game is until you've been in that mud. You've been belly flat behind those sandbags as 70 grenade icons twirled around your hood, and you tried to throw one of them back only to see every single person that just threw a grenade is now throwing another grenade. And it was something else. Regardless of how you feel about grenade spam in World at War, it made the game harder. Because the grenade indicator is quite ambiguous in the early Call of Duties. In fact, it's been ambiguous for a while in most of them, and it can sometimes be tough to tell exactly where they are. So you could oftentimes run away from a grenade and run directly onto another grenade, and it led to deaths, lots of deaths. It's a way of forcing a player from a safe spot. There are a lot of games that you can play where if you get behind the right piece of cover, you've already won. There's nothing really left to be done. You can just, segment the battlefield, dissect the enemies, and get rid of them. In World at War, you can't do that, because if you sit behind that cover long enough, you are eventually going to get rained upon by some rather handy and rather volatile new jewellery in the form of stick grenades. And it made it so that nowhere was safe. And I personally think the idea of nowhere being safe is a very good means of making a game very difficult. But I believe the way that World at War did it was perhaps not the best. And I think the easiest way to have fixed that situation would have been to give them a cap. I think you could have made it so that each soldier carries 2 hand grenades, and that's it. And you would have still got those grenades forcing you out of cover, you just would not have got covered in them, like you do when you play that game. And the game would still be difficult, and it would still have those moments where you have to pray when you run out into no man's land, but you wouldn't feel like you are being bombarded for no other reason than because Activision made the game intentionally annoying. And it's little tweaks like that that can facilitate the greatest changes in a game. Such a small alteration can make a game. And I think in this, if they changed a couple of values when it comes to the damage, I think they could have made a very large change and made the game much more challenging. In Quantum Break, I think they needed more than that. In Quantum Break, you are just too strong. There's nothing in that game that compares to how powerful and how capable you are. In Max Payne, you were powerful during slow motion, but everything else you were vulnerable. And that's the trade-off. If you can use slow-mo, you can win. If you get caught out of slow-mo, you're generally going to lose. Unless you're very good at the game, and then there's a distinction of skill there. In this game, unless you're at a moment like this, like the distance that I'm fighting at right now is beneficial to me because it means that I don't have to worry too much about getting peppered. Because at this distance, the damage drop-off is so high, I won't take too much damage if I get hit. However, this same principle applies to my opponents. The difference being is, I have this assault rifle that's got like 30 bullets in a clip, and I can just pepper people with no recoil effortlessly from a distance, and it's the safest way to do it. We're in a base here, it's a bandit den, it's called Squelch, I believe. And there's a lot of tough guys in here. In fact, you're going to see somebody shoot me from quite a distance, and it hits me. Which is unusual considering how fair the game is. And it's coming up in a moment. I've never seen those dogs before. This was the first time I saw these dogs. So this is proof that other enemies do exist, they've just hidden them in the world. But I think it's this person on my right just there who hits me. There's another one of those wonderful pauses that I've had to trim out. Couple dogs. There it was, see that? That person hit me square on again. This is how you know that the people here don't mean business, because the way that this guy's hitting me here makes me think he's unique. And I don't know why he's so good and everyone else is so bad. But whoever that one person was who was doing his job correctly, the game could have done with a few more of him. As I kick that guy down and shoot him in the face, the poor lad. 2 more diamonds on the map. 3 diamonds, 1 to my left. 4 diamonds. People spread everywhere. Hopefully it's not too many strong guys. But the game has people with shields. It has people in these huge robots. But you just don't see them. You rarely, if ever, see them in the main campaign. It's really unfortunate. There we go again. Guy on the balcony. Tagging me pretty good, right? Look at him. See this? Right now, this is feeling a bit more dangerous. But I got hit, what, 4 or 5 times then? And I have 80 HP, 90 HP. It's not enough. I suppose the flip side of that coin as well is a gratitude from me, because when you're dying in this game, the screen gets fucking obnoxious. So I suppose I'm kind of glad they don't do incredible damage, because if they did, we'd have that wonderful, you know, muted audio and breathing that these games are obsessed with that I've never enjoyed personally. And here we go, we have another den coming up. This is all optional, but also mandatory. And if that sentence causes confusion, what I mean is, you have to do side missions to progress the main plot, but you don't have to do this one. If you don't like this one, if the Shrouded Outpost that's level 8 is a bit too much, go do a different one. But you see how armoured these people are? This is kind of like John Wick 3, isn't it, when the High Table have got the new armour. But the problem with the Shrouded is that they're all stupid. I don't really understand this enemy too much. They will willfully stand in the same place and just let you just lean into them and do incredible damage. And a lot of them come with shotguns, and when you shoot them, even though they're wearing armour, they still flinch, and when you start flinching somebody, they just can't recover. You will kill them if you continue to shoot them. It's just how it works. You can hear people here as well. There's a lady talking to me. Here she is. But other than being incredibly resilient, they're not so bad. And I always wonder how you do armour in a video game, because it almost never feels good. Ooh, that right there was him throwing a little robot that's going to shoot me. It's a little friend, like a helping gun. You can also get those yourself. On top of the wing sticks, the wind sticks, the grenades, and those robots. I played around with them a little bit on my practice run, but I just didn't really see any use for them, because the game is already very manageable. So you won't see me use too many, if any. Couple more diamonds on the screen though, pushing forward here, using the boxes as cover. Trying to get up the stairs right here, but colliding a little bit. Pop the shotgun on just in case. Boom, 1 shot. Good night. And we get some treasure for it, so some nice feltrite. But the feltrite in this game governs all of your upgrades seemingly, so depending on what you want to upgrade will depend on where you want to spend that resource. I'm not the biggest fan of one resource governing everything, because I think it kind of cuts off your hand, doesn't it, to spite your face sometimes. Which is a wonderful mix of incorrect metaphors. Anybody else left? I can hear someone, but I can't see anybody. A rare moment of calm as well with the music playing. Here we go, 2 people over here. I think they're all, yeah, they're beneath me. There's a staircase that leads down beneath me, and it leads into a base, into like a bunker. I wasn't entirely certain of it because I don't know this area very well. This is the first time I've actually cleared this area out. Luckily, this guy came to me, and so did this fellow. And because this game is so fair, I am literally dodging bullets like Neo in the Matrix. It's so much fun, dude. The ability to just circumvent damage. I really hope that projectile is the new hit scan, because hit scan can suck a dick, dude. Call of Duty hit scan, where you pop out of cover and you're immediately view kicked into oblivion. I never enjoyed that. And there we go, the Shrouded Outpost is ours, $256, and another thing ticked off for the abilities that we need. And now we have a main mission, Cult of the Death God. So, moving into the Death God's Cavern, this is a level 7 mission, and it's going to be mutants. So if you have any particular gun you like using for mutants, this is the time to pop it on. If you're looking for any upgrades that you can use, here's the time you're going to get the resources for it, because you're going to be able to get more of the mutant spores and hopefully get that passive damage increase. But what did you think about Rage 2, guys? What did you like? I think the big things to take away from me is I love the shooting, and everything else kind of feels a little bit half-arsed. I don't like the driving very much. I don't like the open world very much. I think they filled it with a lot of tedious activities. I don't think that the towns really do much other than bolster the stereotypical sandbox essential ticks. But the moment you start fighting and you realise how elegant the damage is, how elegant the enemy's behaviour is, how the difference between life and death is literally upon you rather than something else. How many games do you play where you take a death and you feel like there was nothing you could have done because you just did not have the knowledge to know that that was going to happen? You will almost never feel like that in Rage 2. You'll see the enemies, you'll understand what they do, and getting rid of them is up to you. If you don't get rid of them, it's your fault, you know? You are far more capable than they are. And they're going to give you every opportunity to do it because their animations are so florid. So many fancy animations. But nice pink box at the top of here. We've got a flame-throwing mutant over there. Try and get away from him. Pick up some more of the old ammo. There you go. Use him as an improvised explosive device and then pepper his friends. One thing that is worth mentioning here though, guys, this game is oftentimes so bright and so colourful with its flame effects and with its particles and all of its fancy aesthetics that it can be hard to see things. Like right now, I can't even see where that monster is in that darkness there, in that pool of darkness, in the penumbra. But I'm shooting him anyway, you know, wait for that crosshair to go red and hoping for the best. There are a lot of situations, especially later on in this mission, where there is so much colour happening on the screen, it can almost be too much to see. And it reminds me a lot of, you know when you first play Battlefield's modern multiplayer, where there's so many glare effects and so many like shifts from night to day from going inside and outside and all the explosions and the smoke, and you spend the whole time just like, where the fuck is people? I can't see anything, this is crazy, I'm in a war. And then you have the Battlefield purists all going like, that's the point, it's meant to be like that, it's just like, it's the realism. I play video games for realism, where a man has infinite sprint and respawns from death. Realism. But on the flip side, it's also very hard to adjust to, and it can be very difficult to see basic information. Back in the good old days of competitive multiplayer, especially when it came to Quake, you would notice that the professionals would turn down the graphics so that they didn't have those distractions. Their game literally looked like shit Lego, but they could see everything they needed to see to perform well, and there's a part of me that kind of wishes I was able to do that, but at the same time, I do like games to look beautiful if I can. That's why I play them on the best console ever made, the Xbox One. The only console to make games truly beautiful. Oh wait. Anyhow, this is a room full of mutants. This is a kill box. We're going to be spending the majority of this fight flanking around the sides and getting rid of lots of these fast creepers, whose names I've never knew, so I cannot forget. But we move really quick now when we sprint, and we have a really good advantage, because this gun has so many bullets in it, it would be enough to kill Arnold Schwarzenegger. But keep on flanking, spinning around, using your grenades. Be careful of that. These creatures have the ability to throw this black stuff at you. I pray it's not feces. I pray for the Rage Slayer guy, the Rage guy, I don't know his name. Random insert character number 1 who was so interesting I forgot almost everything about him the second I stopped shooting. Here we go. Anybody else? A couple of mutant spores. That guy, and that guy. And then here, this guy turns up and opens the doorway. Lots of people though. Lots of practice for your aim. I do wonder what this game would have been like if it was completely linear. Because this is a linear moment, and it's better than a lot of the non-linear moments. Like, did you guys like the combat as much as I did, folks? Did you like the shooting? Did you like the abilities? Did you think the abilities were going to be more crazy? I think that's one of the areas I was really surprised with. I thought the game was going to be full of just completely off-the-chain kind of craziness. I thought you were going to have gravity guns, and it was going to be all kinds of weird shit. And I suppose there are some interesting stuff in it. There's some interesting guns and some interesting abilities. Will Rage 3 master what they've started? Or do you think there won't be a Rage 3 because people are calling this game Average, which is not good? I do like that they have that swell on them, the items when they're in the dark, that gives you an idea that they're there. It reminds me of the coloured overlay that Perfect Dark implemented. I don't remember seeing it in a game before that, but you could make the ammo boxes glow. Here we go. Break through the slats, push forward into the den, kill whoever comes across our path. Ooh, do you see how nice the lighting looked on the gun then from that wonderful golden light? That looked beautiful. This game's got some really, really nice dynamic lighting. And on my CPU, which is not a very good CPU, the game ran beautifully even when I was recording. I didn't have to turn any of the settings down, which was really nice, including things like the lighting and the shadows. The shotgun is so good in this game. There's the flamethrowing dude. Gotta watch out for him. I think you can give the shotgun 12 shots as well. 12 shots with this gun is a lot. But then again, 52 bullets with this assault rifle, and this assault rifle will stop anything. There's pretty much nothing in this game that the assault rifle will not melt. But what have we got? Moving down a corridor with some wonderful dramatic lighting. There's the screams of more mutants throwing their own shit. A couple guys too close for comfort. You can punch the mutants when they come towards you, and you can counter hit them, but a lot of the times you'll trade with them. One of the areas where first-person shooters haven't quite mastered it yet is the idea of a melee attack against a first-person camera. There are so many times when you get hit by first-person nonsense when somebody throws a melee attack that's nowhere near you, but you get hit because of the perspective. I'm really hoping that Borderlands is not going to have that. I'm really hoping that Borderlands can really move forward and evolve its formula of shooting. Because if this is its competition, the shooting in this game is so good. Like, if the shooting in Borderlands felt like this, Borderlands would probably be my game of the year. Because Borderlands usually, and hopefully the third game will, it usually has enough distractions and enough features to make it fun, even though all you're doing is the same thing all the time. So, new weapons, better visuals, new features, hopefully some cool skill trees, and Borderlands 3 could be absolutely phenomenal. But here's another pink handle telling us that it's important. Very kind of the people to go around painting the important things. And then we have this room, which is a very, very big room. So this is another one of the death fests. This is a gauntlet of enemies. In the middle of this area is the effigy of the character from the first Rage. This is a nice little throwback, and at first I thought this area was DLC, but I believe it's one of the missions that John Marston, or whatever his name is, I don't know his name, John Marshall Marston is from Red Dead, right? Yeah, John Marshall sent you to do this, but I think that this is essential. If this is not essential, ladies and gentlemen, you're getting a little bit of bonus gameplay, because this is a very hectic fight coming up. But there you go, the kind of quintessential Doom guy armor that was on the Rage guy, which then became the Rage guy's armor, which is now on the Rage 2 guy, which has then become the quintessential Rage 2 guy's armor. I didn't say it flowed or made any sense, but there it is. And then you have this. This is one of the best fights in the game, because it's not so fair. This is a ton of people exploding, firing projectiles completely surrounding me, and this is where the game is at its most hectic and its most exciting. But once again, the game is still so immaculately balanced that even facing all of these odds and all of these people is really, really manageable if you're as fast as my character is with the 30% speed increase. But like in most first-person shooters on the hardest difficulty, I'm probably already dead. I've probably been hit several times, and there was almost no way to guarantee not taking damage outside of perfect pathing. In this, if you're fast and you're mobile, that's all you need. And you can clear an entire room of really bad people without taking a single hit, which is insanity, and it's why I love this game. And we now get access to a weapon you're never going to see me use, so that's pretty sick. It's the classic Rage pistol. I don't like it at all in this game. It doesn't hit where you shoot it a lot of the times. It feels really weak when it sounds really strong. So I don't recommend the gun at all, but I didn't upgrade it, and maybe the upgrades make it a lot better. But there goes Cult of the Death God. We can now go back to Marshall's old friend, and that's going to tick off another one of our mandatory missions, I believe. And there's a lovely pink ladder to tell you that you're going in the right direction. I'm a big fan of the pink motif, I'm sure you've noticed. But at this moment in time, my channel is opening up for opportunity. There aren't many games coming out until, well, the next 2 months don't really have too much in it, so it affords me the luxury to do some new projects and to do some things and maybe go back and finish some things, start some new things, go back to some old things, and generally just do the thing that really makes my channel hopefully a little bit different to other channels, which is hopefully the unexpected. I like the ability to start something you might not have thought was going to happen, or continue something you thought was dead, things like that.
Where is that guy? An old
But
Vocalog.
it's the motivation that I'm lacking at the moment for some projects to do. I'm looking for something to interest me and to spark my passions so that I can throw my efforts into, and I can make something really cool and really enjoyable that hopefully you'll watch and enjoy. And I'm not too sure what that thing's going to be. I've got a couple of ideas bouncing around in my brain, but nothing is enticing me. And here we go, Ranger Refueling Station. This is a level 1 environment, so hopefully this should be a lot easier. It probably won't be though, but we'll find out together. However, on the topic of projects, to give you an idea of what I mean by the ones that have impassioned me before and inflamed me into doing something that I've really enjoyed, I did a Dead Space 2 no upgrade, no shop, no damage run. And I was obsessed with it when I was doing it. I was having such a good time. It was an amazing game. It was a really fun challenge. It started off quite difficult as a challenge, and it got a lot easier as I got better at the game. I was playing it on a new console, so it was like a different jump from how I'd played it before, and it was the combination of a lot of elements, and I really enjoyed the series. And even though I couldn't do the final boss under all the stipulations, because it was insane, I'll say that much. It's probably doable, but I couldn't do it because it involved cycling enemies and intentionally not firing and stuff, and you had to rely on RNG for some drops, which was preposterous. But fundamentally, everything else I adored, and it was really, really good. It was one of those projects that did okay on the channel as well, and I think people enjoyed it. I immediately had the impression to go to Dead Space 3 and do the same to that game, because I don't like Dead Space 3. But playing it on mouse and keyboard and really destroying it, no damage, would have kind of been the ultimate catharsis for me to kind of say, this is a shit game, I don't like it, it ruined the franchise, it ruined the future of Dead Space, and it took everything that I loved and pissed on it. And this is my project showing you that even though you don't like something, you can still, have a good time with it and make something cool. Here's the Junkers Pass arc. This is very close to the beginning of the game, but I didn't go to it, but I'm going to do it now so I can hopefully get my loyalties to 5. This is a pretty simple one, so you might have already done this one. But it turns out that Mass Effect... If I said Mass Effect, guys, I meant Dead Space. I apologise, my brain's frazzled. But it turned out that Dead Space 3 had acceleration on its mouse, and it makes the mouse impossible to use. I do not like using mouse with acceleration, so I wasn't able to cover it. And I wanted to do a third-person shooter, but I didn't really know what to cover after that, because I went back to Dead Space 1, which is something I'm going to cover eventually, but Dead Space 1, having done Dead Space 2 the way I did, felt really easy. I was clearing entire rooms on my first attempt, as if it was nothing, and as cool as that is, and as fun as it would be to watch, I'm going to save that for when we're excited about Dead Space again, potentially, when I make that. So instead, I decided to do Max Payne 3, a game that I really liked, that I'd played on the Xbox 360, and that had aged pretty well, and I'd never played the PC version of that, so I decided to do that as well. And I loved that project too, because Max Payne 3 on the PC is an absolute pleasure to play. It runs really well, it feels really good, and of course when you have the mouse control you can do things that you simply can't do on the sticks. So I was able to make a really fun run of that game where I took no damage, and I had a ball doing it too, and I hope the people that watched it enjoyed it. It didn't do as well as the Dead Space one, but hopefully if you saw it you liked it. And I love how I feel when I'm making those kind of runs, when I'm really inspired, when I'm really just enveloped in what I'm doing and I can't wait to continue it. Kind of how I was when I was recording this, because I had a lot of fun with this game too. But unfortunately, this game doesn't have any reason to cover the game, For many ways, I could have just not covered this, but I wanted to because I want to show people that, yeah, this game's not the best, but it's really fun if you like the shooting. the car stuff might not be to your favour, the open world stuff is just complete waste of time, the game, but the moment you start engaging people, if you're moving about and you're jumping and you're shooting, it really does hark back to those old arena shooters. It reminds me of things like Unreal Tournament and Quake and, you know, some of the great ones. And at this moment in time, we don't have that many games coming out that are like this, you know? There hasn't been that many first-person shooters. The first-person shooter well seems to have moved towards very stylized and very specific type of games, whereas this is definitely its own thing, even though what it doesn't always do it that well, minus the shooting, of course. The shooting is beautiful.
Come back soon,
And here we have another arc that we're taking on to get more Cavassia points. So, pepper a couple bullets on the guy on the roof. This is a level 5 Canyon Cove arc. This can be pretty difficult, this one, because there's two factions fighting each other. But as long as you're aggressive and you know what you're doing, you'll be fine. But that's the kind of project that I want to be inspired to make, and I've been looking around to see if I can find any influence to push me that way. There are a few games that I wish I loved more than I do, so that I could cover those, and I really regret not being able to cover them because I know a lot of people like them. Like, I really wish I'd have got into Monster Hunter and fallen in love with it, because I know people love that game, and there's so much to do in that game. It would have been great to cover that, but unfortunately it just wasn't for me. Additionally, it would have been really nice to like Doom 2016, which I think is an amazing game, but I just didn't find it that much fun to play. Which is a complete heresy, isn't it, to say? I know a lot of people will probably gasp and go, what? How can you like Rage 2 but you didn't like Doom 2016? It's an interesting question, isn't it? But it just stems from the mobility in Doom. If Doom was faster, I'd like it more. But I came off playing a game called Shadow Warrior 2, and Shadow Warrior 2 is very fast, and it affords me the ability to jump around dashing like a lunatic, and if you give me that ability, I will love you forever, but if you do not have that ability, I will struggle to love you at all. And it's one of the reasons I love Titanfall 2 so much. Like, if this game was just Titanfall 2 sandbox, I probably would never stop playing it. And I say this a lot when I'm speaking on my streams. I talk about this idea of mixing games, mixing mechanics, and some people take it a little bit too literally, and they say things like, well, I wouldn't want this in that, and vice versa. But for me, I want a game that has the appeal and the longevity of something like a Skyrim, or insert a game you spent hundreds of hours in, like Witcher 3 or something. And I want it to have the mechanics of a game that's absolutely phenomenal. The kind of game that when you feel it and you feel how it plays, you know you are in for quality. The kind of game that usually isn't very long, because you can't have a game feel that good and be that long. You can't have both, right? The combination of those two factors is definitely a dream of mine. And here we have the Yeoman Growery, where we have to eliminate all the goons. This is quite a unique one because I'm going to get in a tank. And I haven't really used the vehicles yet, but I wanted to maybe change the gameplay a little bit, give you something else to stare at, so I'm going to be getting in a boomer. I've never been in this tank before, so what you're witnessing here is Chris's tentative baby steps into controlling a vehicle in Rage. And one thing that I completely forgot, which frustrated me to no end, is that the gun auto-aims for you. I don't need the gun to auto-aim for me, I'm using a fucking mouse. But it does, so I'm going to be fighting my own control scheme right now. And whenever I'm recording, I don't want to pause and go into the menus because it's more editing to do. So I didn't check to see if you could turn it off. But if anybody knows if you can turn off the lock-on that the cars have, that's a really cool piece of advice because it's annoying as piss on PC. You do not need help. Aim assist exists for controllers because controllers have a harder time of being precise and making micro adjustments. Aim assist is really good on controllers and really useful. On a mouse, it feels like some alien is taking over your hand. It's annoying. But the siege begins on the Growery. Do what you do best, take out the enemies, push forward, be aggressive, marvel at the cinders and the embers and all the smoke and the wonderful particle effects. Because if for nothing else, Rage 2 has a lot of beautiful tech in it, but I expect nothing less from the pedigree. It just doesn't lend itself for too much discussion of mechanics, because there's not really much I can guide you with. I suppose the big thing to guide you with is just try and enjoy it. It's a super fun game. A lot of people nowadays seem to need everything in the game for it to be classed as good, and if it doesn't have everything ticked, they just write it off as trash. And I've never really understood that, and I'm very critical of video games because I think we have to be. Like, if we're not critical of developers and publishers, then they'll piss down our backs and convince us it's raining, and we'll get things like the Destiny 10-year plan, or sequels that don't even live up to the original games. You know, games as a service, which is an excuse to release a fucking empty video game that isn't even finished and tell you that in 6 to 8 months there might be something worth doing. And I'm always against this notion. And it always brings me back to the nostalgia-ridden perspective of when games came out back in the day. They were fixed, or at least functional to an extent. They had longevity, they had unlockables, they had things that led us to playing them for many years to come. They didn't have day one patches that were 70 fucking gig, you know? They didn't have several pieces of DLC you didn't want that didn't really turn into anything worthwhile and you kind of wish they didn't exist and they'd focus their energy elsewhere. They didn't have loot boxes. They didn't have progression systems tied between grinding for stupid cosmetics and things like that. Like, how many games back in the day did you beat and they gave you a cool costume? Nowadays, that costume doesn't exist because half the costumes in the games you get are for lunatics to buy, and then you have to buy them to begin with, so you wouldn't buy them because why would you give a company money for something that looks like shit? Interesting perspective, isn't it? And it does sound rather cynical and rather pessimistic, but this whole idea of games as a service is probably the most transparent thing that the publishers and developers have ever done as far as making money, because they're telling you that this is an ongoing, evolving thing and it's not finished, and the thing that we really care most about is money. And unfortunately, money is the driving force behind almost everything in this reality, and it's one of those necessary evils. You cannot have art without it being commissioned, right? The artist needs to feed himself, and to feed himself he needs money. If only he could eat his equipment, right? But then he wouldn't be able to create his art, so it would be a almost auto-cannibalistic nature that would stop him from being a fulfilled artist. The joys of circular philosophical concepts, right? As we randomly drive around in this boomer firing explosions. Yeah, I was trying to kill everybody in the car, but I couldn't get people to rush you. One of the things I've noticed in this game is that the enemies will refuse to rush, and I can't tell if that's the smartest thing they've ever done, or if it's a limitation of their programming. Because let's face it, the AI in Rage 2 is kind of thick. And then they rush you at the weird times. Answers on a postcard, guys. Do you think it's smart AI, or if it's just one of those things they didn't remember to do? I guess we'll never find out. But there is the Yeoman Growery, $200+ into the old bank account so that you can spend frivolously, and now we're going to be going towards an arc that's going to introduce an enemy you're not going to see in the main game. Which is this dude. This guy is wearing a massive suit of junk armor, and you can destroy each piece of his junk suit. It's really interesting. His junk mech. And this is the first time I've ever seen this enemy. And it was just as I was trying to tick off some arbitrary boxes to unlock the final missions. Which is something that I should stress as well, guys. This is not going to be the quickest and most expedient manner of unlocking the final mission to get you to the end of the game. It's just the fastest way that I did it, you know? And hopefully it had a little bit of diversity in it so you could see some separate aspects of the game. The reason I'm being so tentative right now is because I don't know this enemy's moves. I don't know when I'm safe and I don't know when I'm in danger, so I'm giving him a very wide berth. And I'm repositioning just in case he can just like drop bombs on me. But this thing's cool. I like this enemy a lot. Because it's super fair. It's another casualty of how fair its own systems are. And I'm trying to think of a game that's even remotely as fair as Rage 2. I'm trying to think if Quantum Break would be. Because Quantum Break is fair because you are overpowered as fuck. You are so bullshit in that game. Like, you should be the final boss because nobody's stopping you in that game. But there are a few games, aren't there, where you're super capable. Super capable and so much more capable than everybody else. Answer on a postcard, guys. Which game do you think made you play as a character that was hands down more capable than everybody else? To such an extent that you almost felt sorry for the enemies. Can you think of any? And I suppose in some ways you could cite things like Doom and Quake and things where you're this unstoppable killing machine with a full arsenal of tools and the enemies are just cannon fodder morons that just walk towards you mindlessly until you kill them. But I don't think that that's the same, is it? That's more the way that they were made than anything else. And they're still power fantasies, and they're still effective, and they're still fun, which is the most important part. Yeah, but look at this dude. Interesting, right? Big old suit of armor. You don't even see him in the main game. He is literally on some random side mission like this. But here's another arc. What does this one get us? Hopefully it's something sick. Stick your hand into the injection gun, always fun. And I'm not too sure what it gave us. It gave us something. There you go. Dealy Pipe arc is done. $211. And now we can finally do the double cross with Kavasa, which is a main mission. And how I was doing this, if you're wondering, folks, is I was doing the side missions on the way to the main missions, and then when there was no main missions on the map, I would do side missions until the main missions turned up. And then I've just edited it into sequence, and trimmed out all the downtime in between. So I'm going to touch this, and it's going to teleport me. We're now going to go to the double cross area, which is this research facility down here. And then this has jumped us all the way to an authority sentry that's on the way. This is a level 8 authority sentry. I can't help but feel like these sentries could have been a bit more interesting, because as it stands they're kind of shitty. But I think they want you to do these in the car. I think that's why they're so simple. Because I think the car is the way to do these things. Then again though, how would you dodge them? How would you dodge what that boss just did if you're in a car? Can the car jump? If the car can jump, I never figured that out. But then again, every time I got in the car it made me sad, so I was kind of happy not to figure that out, maybe. And this game has DLC, can you believe that? Because you might be thinking, all games have DLC, Chris, it's just how games work. But this is a game that you can beat in, like, 3 hours. 3 hours. If you just follow nothing but main missions. 3 hours! And it's got fucking DLC. Why didn't they put it into the main game? Make it a bit longer, you know? And the worst part is, I suppose the counter-argument there is to say, well, why don't you do the side missions? The side missions will inflate the length. But the side missions are so repetitive that unless you really, really like the shooting like I do, doing them is just needless. It's such an interesting thing, like, to have such a good mechanic and then not give the player a reason to use it. What a dichotomy that is. But this is a genetic research station, and we're going to be taking on the Authority. I like these missions. There's some really fun ones, there's some nice environments, and there's some nice spawns too. One of the things that might be a little bit of a downer for some is the aesthetic. The aesthetic of these locations is all super identical, and it's all kind of the same metallic green and red hues of everything, green, reddy, blue stuff. And it's just corridors and lifts and corridors and lifts and wide open room, corridor, things like that. But it's hard to be too angry with it because it's the same aesthetic as the first game. I think all Authority bases are meant to kind of be like this. So they're committing to the fiction, which does justify it a little bit. But it's kind of like the hellscapes, isn't it, in Doom? The sewer levels in every video game. It's that level that you go to, that games go to far too frequently, that you question why they do it, because it feels really uninspired. And unless you like super industrial, angular architecture and boxes and, you know, randomly placed neon lights, which, you know, are not the worst thing in the world, it's not really an environment that screams, I want to spend a large amount of time in here, does it? It's kind of the dark cave equivalent of your science fiction robotic future. But I do love the bloom and the lighting. There's some wonderful lighting going on as we come over to this console. Sometimes the way the game checkpoints its icons on the screen, which is not the real word I should have said, checkpointing is probably not the thing, but the way that they populate, the HUD with your objective can sometimes be a little bit hit and miss. There are times when it's hard to tell what the game wants you to do. So you'll touch something, nothing will happen because something's happening in the background, and then you'll wait around a little bit, and then you'll trigger something. And I'm not too sure if you're waiting for like an invisible timer somewhere, but just then, it didn't tell me that I had to mess with the console until the conversation got to a certain threshold. But it spawned some enemies as Kavasa does his little "you're breaking up" joke. Here come a few more of these enemies. standard drones of the Authority. Look at the lighting in here, though. It's lovely colours, very dramatic. It definitely screams evil science fiction baddie base, doesn't it? And then through this next door is a boss, the same Cyber Crusher we killed earlier. So this fight's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to back all the way up into this doorway so that he can't open up immediately with a jumping attack. And then by the time I've finished shooting him, he will be stunned. So shoot his chest, he'll then go down. Use this as an opportunity to break one of his back nipples. Don't do what I'm doing here, this is a waste of time. You do not have time to kill both of them in one sequence, but I tried anyway because I am a trier. Instead, focus on killing one. Then when you kill one, it resets him anyway, so you'd never stood a chance to kill the other one. And then now you've stunned him again, shoot his other one, and then his head's going to become vulnerable, and then you can use the rest of your magazine to put him down. Bear in mind, when he roars, he gets iframes, so you can't damage him until a certain amount of time afterwards, but then you can damage him insanely. And there you go. An easy boss that shouldn't have been copy-pasted here, that really should have more complexity, but unfortunately does not. And the next time we fight him, it's going to get even worse for him. He's going to die almost immediately. And I just question, why does he exist? He's not interesting, he's not difficult, there's nothing about him that is demanding for the player. He's kind of just, well, we've made this huge thing, and we've made this jump on his head 3 times to kill him Mario-esque design weakness. Let's just throw him at the player a bunch of times, right, and call it difficulty. And in a game where it's very balanced, you can't be throwing such a helpless enemy at the player. Because let's bear in mind here, guys, I have none of the extra weapons, and the extra weapons are ridiculous. I have very minimal upgrades, and some of the upgrades are ridiculous. And I still put that thing down in the space of, what, 20 seconds? Simply, it's not enough, right? Now, if there'd have been 2 of them, it wouldn't have been as fun, but it would have definitely been more difficult. Like, they could have had one of them who's a melee guy and one of them who's a gun guy. So the melee guy puts pressure on you and the gun guy puts ranged pressure on you. There could have been all sorts of things they did, but they just didn't. And then now we have a boss fight against this dude. So this is General Cross. He begins with the same move as always, smashing the ground, jump over the ripples, and then shoot him until he cannot be shot anymore, and then he will spawn some enemies. Turn around immediately, kill the enemies, and now he's going to be using the central core to power himself up, so you need to shoot the weak point of these machines that are powering up the core. Once you destroy them, he's vulnerable again. Shoot him in the face, dodge his bullets, and then he might slam the ground or he might get stunned. If you do enough damage, he'll spawn more enemies, kill the enemies as they spawn because this game is too fair, and then smash the machines again, and then all you have to do is shoot the boss one more time and he's done. This is Nightmare, guys. This is a boss. This game is too fair. Should I really be able to kill this boss before he does anything? Probably not, right? But that's exactly what I just did. And I'm not exactly the best Rage 2 player in the planet. It's just, unfortunately, the game is unbearably fair. And good for them, you know. Not everything has to be difficult, but when you play on a difficulty called Nightmare, you should be having bad dreams. That's kind of the point, isn't it?
Are you all that's
But there you go.
Got a dash.
I love that. That piece of dialogue just then. But here is Mr. Cavassa. I'm trying to interact with him right now, and it's doing what Rage 2 often does, where it just doesn't signify that you're doing anything. But it is working, but it doesn't look like it's working, and sometimes that's worse. But there's the sample. Talk to our buddy here. Get the serum, and now we can move on to whatever the next mission is. We're now moving into the final section of the game. Double Cross is done. But I'm curious as to what the DLC is going to be like, because it's paid DLC too, which I find to be kind of obnoxious for such a short game. Oh, here we go, we've got another Bandit's Den. I think this is going to be the last few Bandit's Dens coming up. This one is particularly difficult. It's called Shoals, and there is a lot of enemies in this one. We're going to be using the swamp and using the verticality to our advantage. guerrilla warfare is a very good technique in Rage 2. That is the unmistakable swan song of a shotgun. We need to put him down. But once we've done this, there's only a few things left to do before they give us the missions that are going to lead us to the end. But it wouldn't be a sandbox game without forcing some of this on you. Fortunately, I do really enjoy the base mechanics of this game. And enjoying the base mechanics can go a long way. Just look at Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero is a series that if you're playing music you will love the game because the mechanics are timeless. But if you're playing nothing but Paramore and fucking Skrillex, you'll probably shoot yourself. Unless you like that stuff, and then perhaps you're loving it. And speaking of Guitar Hero, my Explorer controller has finally died. And by saying died, I mean the strum bar on it has started to just be really bad right now. Whenever I strum down, I get overstrums. I can't even do a simple strum with it. So I'm going to have to open it up and do some guitar surgery to fix it. And I do not have a screwdriver that fits this guitar because it does not take a flathead or a posi driver. It takes one of those other ones. And that's going to be fun. Because I've never done it before, so hopefully I can figure it out because my buttons are so good. I've got my buttons broken into such an extent that they are poetry. They are as tantalizing as virgin thighs. They are godlike. I love everything about those buttons. But the strum bar's been nothing but a filthy Judas the whole time I've used it. So it'll be nice if I can go in and make it work correctly and make it not overstrum at all. But if I do lose the guitar for whatever reason, I think I'm going to go in and take that plastic that's on the buttons, that what the buttons press into to flip the switches, and I'm going to transfer it to my other Explorer and then save that one's rubber for another time. Because it's just so goddamn good. It's like perfect at the moment. It makes doing all kinds of like quad zigs, quint zigs way easier because it rolls off your hand. And whereas my other guitar, it hasn't had anywhere near the playtime on it, so it's pretty stiff. And if you've played a stiff Guitar Hero controller, it can make doing really fast note speeds really difficult for hammer-ons and pull-offs. But here is the chest hollow. We've got to take out some river hogs. This is another pretty difficult one. I ended up resetting here a few times because I didn't like how the fight was going. But this particular wall over here is a really nice clipping spot. And if anybody starts to flank you, you can just jump around and take advantage of your advanced mobility. There's also lots of barrels, but be careful. There are times when you will clip on things when you try to shoot over certain surfaces. It's the thing that Call of Duty should have had way more than it does to stop people from head glitching all the time. There's some wonderful banjo going on right now as well, because it's in the south, of course. But let's kick some ass, see what we can do, take some names, smash some armor, kill some people. But yeah guys, have you ever opened up a Guitar Hero controller? It doesn't look too difficult. I've watched a guy called UCogMonkey do it. He's got a really helpful tutorial on opening it. And I think I should be okay if I put a bit of tape on the port. Hopefully I can help it out. But I feel like it's a PC, isn't it? It's like opening up a PC for the first time. It's like opening up a PlayStation controller. The first time you do it, you're terrified you're going to break it. But if it's already showing signs of on the out, it doesn't matter if you break it, because it's already broken, really. All you're going to do is learn to hopefully be able to fix a problem in the future. And I love that kind of knowledge. I love that I know what a PlayStation controller looks like because I've opened one up and took it apart. I now know what the triggers are and how they work. I now know about the printed circuit board and all that stuff. Same with my PC. I know what the parts are, I know what connects to what, I know how to clean it. And if I'd have never took the time to do that, I would still be ignorant on how to do so. So sometimes those intimidating situations of having to open things up and risking breaking them are the best thing you can do. So I'm looking forward to salvaging it because it really is a beautiful guitar. I've had it for years. But there you go, chest hollow, $265. And then I think we've got an authority sentry here. I think this might be the last mission we need. And this is an awkward one, this one, because you're really close to it. The reason I always put a piece of geometry between me and that missile is because of the AoE on it is huge. It's absolutely massive. And it must be said that this game has really made me hungry for first-person shooters at the moment. We've currently just heard news that Call of Duty is doing cross-platform play, and I think that's probably the best news they could have given, because Call of Duty is one of the most popular franchises, even if you think it's dying, even if you hate Activision, even if you despise the games, if you're burned out, regardless of how you feel, it's still one of the most popular, demanding games when it comes to player numbers and people on there. And for good reason, you know, it's had a pretty good reign. But one of the biggest barriers of entry is everybody on different consoles, and now they're blurring the lines, and it makes me super interested to get back into COD just for the potential of being able to play with all of the people that support me as a community. Being able to play COD with everybody would be really, really fun. And not having a PlayStation copy has always been a barrier. People not having it on PC or having a good enough PC to play it and things like that. There's always been so many problems that have stopped us in the past. And if the new Call of Duty's good, which I hope it is, that barrier is all going to fall down. And I think that that's awesome. And I always find it unfortunate when people condemn a game because they don't like a publisher before it comes out. When people have such brand loyalty to a competitor that they're willing to just shit talk and trounce the reputation of something else because they don't agree with it is always unfortunate, because a publisher is essentially the person that puts the money there to help the game get made. A lot of the times they can get in the way, sometimes they can change things, sometimes they can ruin games, it does happen, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. If not for the publisher, you wouldn't have even got the game, you know, and it even counts for the games that you love. So as much as I disagree with Activision, and I feel like they are one of the boogeymen of video games, they're definitely a company that has had far too high a priority when it comes to milking its audience than it has to actually being enriching and making great games. In spite of that fact, and in spite of those stereotypes and all the things that people don't like, there are still a lot of cool things that come from it. And just because I don't like Activision would never stop me from playing something they make. It just never would. And to some people that shows a lack of integrity. It shows a hypocrisy that they don't respect. But to me, I respect good games. I don't care how they get made. I respect what they are. And I'm happy when Activision publishes something, because it usually means it's going to get the marketing and the money put behind it that it deserves, because they're really unmatched when it comes to throwing money at certain franchises. There are certain companies that when they put their money behind it, it will almost always do well, because it has to by sheer necessity. There's all that money going into it, right? And if you've ever wanted people to buy a game that you love, can you imagine if it had had an Activision budget, just how many more eyes would have been on that game? It would have been better, right? And as long as they don't get in the way of what the game is, and as long as they don't ruin the game, I don't see a problem in it personally. But I do also believe in people voting with their wallets, so if you do dislike something so fiercely, don't buy it. However, I just don't believe that works. Because for every person who will conscientiously object and be mature and try to take that moral high ground, you've got thousands of very casual, easily swayed, you know, trend-hopping, peer pressure subduing to type of folks who literally play things because their friends do. Like, the amount of times I go to social functions with my girlfriend and we come across, you know, people from different walks of life, different industries, different jobs, all kinds of different places. The one thing you will almost always universally see... By the way, that's a drone that's not shooting me, and I don't know why. I did not react to it because I thought it was just like a bug, like a graphics bug or something. Turns out it was a little robot waiting to shoot me in the mouth. But the amount of times I go to these like barbecues and parties and things and weddings and everything, do you know how many people there don't play games but play COD? It's massive. It's really big. It's like Candy Crush for guys. That's the demographic that I've noticed. And I always downplay my video game background because who gives a fuck, right? When you're talking to somebody who does not know video games like you do, talking about the stuff that you're passionate about or the things that you've done doesn't translate well. It's one of the social contracts of reading a room. So I will usually oftentimes downplay my gaming knowledge and my passion for gaming because I know that there are not a lot of people that are out there that are into different things that give a fuck. And there's nothing worse than somebody who's talking about something you don't care about, and even after expressing a disinterest or a lack of passion towards it, he then continues to talk about the thing that he was talking about before. That's one of those big no-nos when it comes to any social environment. But when I speak to these people and they stop talking about their dogs or their children or whatever it is that they sell first to make themselves sound better than they are potentially, because we love to do that, don't we, in social environments? Sell ourselves like it's a CV that we lied on. They love to talk about COD. It's like the universal equalizer for a lot of people. And the thing that I've noticed as well is there are a lot of people who think they're very good at COD and they're not. Which I like. I like the idea that somebody has never seen somebody play that game at such a high level that they believe that they are the peak, the zenith of how that game can be played. And it makes it difficult for somebody who is quite learned when it comes to video games and, you know, the pro communities and things like that. Because when I think of high-level Call of Duty, I think of things like the pros, right? And then when you watch the pros play, you just see the absolute mastery and dedication that they've put into the game. And then when you watch somebody play who's got like a 0.6 KD and he just runs around feeding kills to the enemy team on Team Deathmatch, and they think they're beasting, it's a wonderful juxtaposition. But Call of Duty is really, really popular with a lot of people that you perhaps wouldn't expect. And I think that's why it is so popular, because it appeals to people who aren't traditionally gamers. Activision have managed to crack that particular market, and admittedly I think the well is running dry, but you can't get away from the fact that there are a lot of people that would not touch video games that are touching Call of Duty because they just really enjoy it and because their friends enjoy it. And how many times have you played a game just because your friends wanted to play it, right? I played Ghost Recon Wildlands because a buddy of mine bought it and I wanted to play with him. It just goes to show the depths of hell that we're willing to experience for friends. But here is Gulo, and this is a buggy section too. I recommend that you stay on this roof while all of that exposition happens, because if you don't, you are going to end up having to re-trigger some things, and sometimes the objective doesn't trigger, and then if you reload, it will respawn you before you've gone through all the dialogue and you have to watch it all over again. It's not a particularly well-designed part of the game, or my experiences showed that it wasn't anyhow. But we're now moving into an authority base again. This is level 5. There's usually some enemies on the exterior there, but when I reloaded they all disappeared, which is a pain in the ass, but what can you do? And you'll notice that we're now using our wonderful gold and black camouflage so that this gun can look slightly less ugly than it did by default. This reminds me of the Black Ops golden gun skins. But just push forward here, there's quite a few enemies. At this point, we're pretty much in the final third of the game. If you don't know how to play at this point, the joy of discovering what you like to use will hopefully find you soon. And if you've been stuck on anything, maybe the gameplay that I've presented here could have helped you through some sequences. And then if it didn't do that, I'm hoping you at least enjoyed me watching me jump around like an idiot shooting people. But we've also got Death Stranding on the horizon, don't we? A game that it's very difficult to understand what's going on in that one. It's a game that's got a lot of promise and a lot of pedigree, but the gameplay that we've seen is confusing to say the least. And if we know anything from Hideo Kojima, sometimes the gameplay can't be trusted, right? Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. I'm wondering how heavy the gameplay is going to be in retrospect to how much exposition and story there's going to be. Because even Kojima himself said that he'd probably prefer to make movies, right? But his unique perspective makes very unique games, so I'm very glad that we've got him, because there's not really that many people that are like him in the gaming industry. And one of the things I always found really interesting about Hideo Kojima is that he has like a disorder with his eyes, doesn't he, where he can't look at a screen, he can't play a video game for too long because he gets physiological reactions. And I think he gets like nauseous and things like that. So the person who is in charge of making these games that we love and we adore cannot suffer to play them for longer than small periods of time because his body just literally can't take it. Isn't it interesting that his specialty is something that kills his body in a way? One of those wonderful ironies that life likes to lay on us. There you go, the magic hand of doom. There's another one of those setups here where you can grenade the door and do a lot of damage as they come through. In the bottom left you'll notice we do have access to the abilities, but I'm not using them. It's not that I don't want them, guys, I actually think they're really good. I'm intentionally not using them to try and make the game a bit more taxing. But as you've witnessed so far, when something is so balanced, you are the monster. There are no monsters to be found. This is an interesting place as well. I reset the checkpoint there to see if I could do it better, and it despawned 4 enemies, which I don't understand, but it happens quite a lot. It's not my intention to do that, guys. It's just the way the game is designed. But once again, it's a legitimate strategy if you're having problems. If you want to get less enemies, try respawning them. It happens in more games than you would think. But here we go, back to Gun Barrel. Returning to Marshall to give him the bad news. I do love this movement speed. I really do. I don't think jumping is faster. I just like doing it because it reminds me of bunny hopping. I apologise if you're sitting here being sick and like, oh my god, Chris, what are you doing? Please stop. But I just can't help it. When you give me the tools to go fast, I've got to go fast.
So, what you got for me?
Which is why I'm super stoked for Doom to have the dodge. I hope the dodge in Doom is really responsive. See this? This is the game breaking. I talked to Mr. John Marshall and it fucked up the scripting. Nothing happened. And then afterwards he starts talking. Like, there's a lot of instances of this. I've edited a bunch of them out because you don't really need to see them. But do you see how we've got 5 on each of our buddies right now? We can now go back to all of the quest givers and hopefully trigger some of the new stuff. So this one is the Beneath the Surface mission. That was a wonderful slip. As I pop to a vendor to see if there's anything else I can buy, but I don't think there is. The camouflage I'm using costs 10,000 money. You could use that to buy so many other things. I don't recommend buying the camouflage, but if you're like me and you hate how the assault rifle looks by default, it's definitely a good investment. And here we have the Wellspring block, which if you watch my stream when I showed this off, my game crashed here twice. I didn't really have too many problems with the game outside of not being able to capture due to Vulcan. The ones problems that I did have was in this location. So I'm probably going to be quite aggressive here because I've had to do this a few times. Which is kind of the gameplay I was looking for. But unfortunately, a lot of the levels don't really lead themselves to being too acrobatic. Sometimes you can, especially if you buy the equipment upgrade so that you don't take fall damage the same. But one of the worst things about the game at first is when you get too ambitious with a jump and you take a nice chunk of fall damage that you didn't think you'd take. But keep on peppering them. This is a really fun fight, this one, especially if you do it at this time of day. There's some wonderful hues in the sky, some wonderful smoke tech here, and then you just have to turn the valves on both sides of the doors and you should be done. But I've been talking for 2 hours and 17 minutes and my throat feels like absolute shit. So I hope you're enjoying the video, guys. I do like the large format of video when it comes to putting them on YouTube, but the commentaries are definitely tougher. When you break it down into a bunch, you can do them over a period of time, but when it's one video, I always feel compelled to do it all in a sitting, and it can be rather arduous. And if for some bizarre reason you're 2 hours deep into this commentary, and you're like, I don't like this commentary, I don't know why I'm listening to this man ramble, there is indeed a non-commentated version of this walkthrough, so feel free to check that one out instead. But here we go, Twin Falls, the mission beneath the surface. This is interesting because I tried to reverse engineer this, and it obviously doesn't work, but this game's quite buggy, and I thought, you never know, right? Maybe I'll find something cool. Which translates to, I never find anything cool, I'm incapable of doing these kind of things, but I did try. One thing it did do, though, is it gave me a vantage point to shoot some people that I couldn't see before. So it's always nice to be able to shoot people from a distance. So I came over here and I stood on this piece of concrete, and I looked down here, and I think I'm going to start the fight from this distance with a nice headshot. The next sequence coming up is a large town full of people, and it's like a warren full of enemies, so you get them coming from every single side, and if you can funnel them towards you, you can pick them off clean from over here. And these people aren't even shooting back, which is always good. Even though it doesn't make it for a very difficult game, as we've already lamented. But you know what I would like to do if I had Windows 10? I would probably do a Quantum Break project. Because that's a game that I've always kind of really enjoyed, but always felt like it was too easy. And I would probably try to do something like pistol only, no powers, no damage. Because that would then make that game very different. That would probably be really, really tough to do, even in that game. A game that is so wonderfully balanced and wonderfully capable that all of the scenarios don't even feel like they're enough of a challenge because they're all too fair and balanced and well designed. And that's one of the areas of the design that both this game and Quantum Break seem to suffer from. Which, I hate to say it like that too. I hate to like talk about this as if it's a negative. It really isn't. It's good, but by being so good, it ends up being a bit of a negative from perspective of challenge. So, what I mean if you're confused, because, you know, sometimes I'm quite confusing. When you start a firefight, for instance, in this one here, we have a lot of different enemies, some that like to rush you and fire the baseball bat stuff, some that like to take their time and stand in the back and shoot at you from a range, some that like to get close in armour with shotguns, and that's pretty much it, isn't it? It's just a bunch of enemies that are spotted around this area, all kinds of different perspectives, some people on roofs, some people behind cars. Like, have you noticed I've not been attacked at all by any vehicles? If they'd attacked me in vehicles while I was on foot, you have yourself a shifting of that power paradigm, and you have yourself a much more difficult encounter, but it never happens. It happens when you're outside, it doesn't happen when you're in these bases or in these missions. There's no hierarchy of ability where they can get one above me, because it never happens. That might have been a cool thing to happen, but it doesn't happen. Similar so in Quantum Break. In Quantum Break, there's an initial wave of enemies. You'll fight those, then there'll be a second wave of enemies potentially behind you or in a position of weakness for you, where there'll be slightly lesser enemies, but there'll be one big enemy with them. So there'll be the smaller guys to poke you out of cover, and the big guy to finish you off when you're out of cover. But because you're so capable, and because the spawn is so modest and so fair in how it's been assorted, there's nothing putting enough pressure on you to put you in a bad spot. There's nothing putting you in the same position that 47 stick grenades did in World at War on Veteran. And that's the problem, and it's the same here. Right now on this roof, no one is a threat because they cannot get to me. All of these people will line up beneath me and let me shoot them, and there's nobody putting me in a position that stops me from being safe on that roof. There's no other roof that has a sniper. There's no people throwing bombs up that are perfectly aimed to get me off. There's nothing pushing me off the roof. There's nothing. Like, this game has no sniper enemy class that it could have really needed. If there was a laser sight sniper that did the whole, he gets onto target quite slowly, but if it touches you, you die and you have to move, you immediately have something that I cannot win against unless I do a very specific thing that I can't do when a lot of people are with me. I can't just murder the sniper immediately. Maybe you could make it so that he's armoured. He's like the shotgunners, but he has a one-hit kill weapon at a range, so I have to put myself in a different position. I can't just be doing what I'm normally doing because he'll stop me. You have to have a counterplay for each of the ways the player can play. And in this game, it's also focused on what it is that there's really no counterplays, because you have a counterplay for everything else. Like, did you see just then? There is an enemy who's a unique heavy, but they've put a barrel next to him. A barrel that's going to do big damage to him and his friends. So he's already in a position of weakness for no other reason than because they stuck a barrel near him. Things like that. In most games, that barrel would have been near me, and if they'd have shot at me and missed me, they'd have set the barrel off and I would have died. You know, it's that kind of logic. Instead of making the barrel a deficit for you, which it can be, it's more of a deficit for them because it's been put in such a way to empower you. You don't get that in a lot of games. It's interesting and it's fascinating. And it stems from this game's will to make you feel powerful. Like, look at this. One of the most powerful enemies in the game. And there he goes. Did you see that? It didn't have time for the game to play his fucking music. He died that fast. And it's not because I'm amazing, it's just I knew he was coming, and I know that his weakness is if I shove my gun up his cunt before he has chance to do anything. So that's exactly what I did. And therein lies the issue. That enemy should be invincible until he's activated. You should not be able to kill him before he's activated. Or, if you can hurt him before he activates, make him tanky enough to survive it and make him so that you have to hurt him at that beginning or he just messes you up. But he's not dangerous enough. He's too fair. He's too balanced. And therein lies his issue. And I did shit on him really quickly, but admittedly, this gun is upgraded to max pretty much, and I'm using a mouse, so I can put that white dot on his face, and he can't argue, because he has no teeth, or face, or brain, because I just shot him in the mouth, you know? And it's ridiculous how powerful it is. But it's all a design choice, and it's a design choice I love, because if you give him invincibility, I like him less, because he has an ability that you don't have, because I don't think you get iframes in this game, and if you do, I've forgotten where they were. Like, you might get iframes in the dodge, but I hope that they're very slight. But when you make an enemy invincible, you completely skew the balance towards him, because you can't kill him. And I don't like not being able to kill something, but there are understandable metrics of invulnerability. Making a boss invulnerable when he spawns so that he can do his little speech and his entrance is imperative, or you'll kill the boss before he's said his words, you know? But it's wonderful that it doesn't work that way at the same time. I'm fascinated by the balance of Rage 2. Because it's the best, worst balance, you know? As far as challenge go, it's a joke. As far as balance goes, it's wonderfully elegant. But if I was playing on the enemy team, you would think this game was completely unfair, because there's just nothing they can do. You know, when you bear in mind that each of those enemies then all died before they had a chance to hit me, and each of them dropped HP, so even if they did hit me, which they didn't, I would have healed off of their corpses because of how balanced the healing is. Which then leads to the next question, doesn't it? Is the healing in this game and the way that it's used unbalanced? Because you will always have a heal. You will always have the opportunity to get your life back if you're aggressive enough. Should it have been that the heal did less and that they did more damage to offset it? It's a good question, right? It's an interesting thing to look at. For me, I feel like they needed... Like, look at this. I killed every single enemy then before they'd finished spawning. Their animation of them jumping onto the bridge is really cool, but as they're standing up, they're vulnerable. And now they're all dead. It's wonderful design from our perspective. It's like closing an emergence hole, killing all the locusts as they climb out. You end the fight before it begins with skill, and I love that. But at the same time, if you're trying to challenge me from a video game perspective, if I can just end every fight before it begins, I'm never in danger. So here is that ratio that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. It's a very intricate and difficult balance. And in many ways, Rage 2 got it so right, they actually got it wrong. But once again, there's a lot of subjectivity here. This is a boss coming up as well. Remember how I said the next one was going to be even more of a stomp? Well, get ready for this. So we put his chest down to stun him. We blow up his backpack. We hit his chest again as he's flinching. We go over to his other backpack. We get rid of his other backpack. And then we shoot him in the chest again, which is unnecessary because you can shoot him in the face now. So when you shoot him in the face, the boss never even attacked. Why did the boss never even attack, you ask? Because he has no invincibility and he's fundamentally flawed as an enemy. However, if that boss does attack you, he does a lot of damage, which is really nice. I think he should kill you with anything he does, personally, because if you can kill him like that, he should kill you like that. That's how you even the playing field. But this is actually one of the toughest fights in the game, this one. Because you're up against enemies that are spawning in around you, spawning in off to your side. And although it's not very difficult, it's one of those areas where it's very easy to get hit here, very easy to get tagged. But it's also a fun fight, because it's pushing you outside of your comfort zone that you've had so far. Usually, you're the dominant force, you're the one moving around stomping everybody, whereas here, because they've spawned around you, they've put you into a position of disadvantage, and that's where the challenge is able to grow. Only, everything's dead because you're wonderfully overpowered. But here's another spawn. 2 enemies spawn in. 3 enemies spawn in. Look at that! I broke his armor before he'd finished spawning, and I killed him before he finished flinching after the interrupt of his spawn animation. Can you imagine if you took this principle of game balance and you put it into something else? Like, remember Mass Effect Andromeda, that game that no one likes? There was an enemy in that game whose name I've sadly forgotten. but you will remember him because I remember him. He was like a leader, warlock, summoner kind of character who had a protective shield on him, and he flew around and he spawned enemies when you killed them. And he fired a bunch of really damaging bullshit at you. When you broke his shield, he was vulnerable for a while and then he grew it back. Only breaking his shield took so much damage, he was one of the hardest things in the game because he was fundamentally unbalanced. He was an enemy that took too much damage, that had too much HP, that was too lethal, that had all of these things that stacked the game in his favour, right? Unless you found certain super powerful setups against him. But even then, on Insanity, if you fought that enemy, he was the hardest enemy in the game. And I forget his name, I do apologise. Can you imagine if you could kill him as he spawns, like I just killed that dude in the armour? Immediately you have a different game. But immediately you have an easier game. That douchebag from Andromeda might not have been the most balanced enemy, but he was really hard. Like, look at that. Look at what I'm doing, you know? The enemies spawn, they do the wonderful Terminator animation as they stand up naked in a new world, and they're already dead. But the trick here, guys, is to remove the to open the fission cores and then shoot them when you're over here. Then you won't have to worry about the lasers swiping you. And then if you wait at this doorway, all the enemies that have just spawned will all be looking towards us. And if you jump over them, you can get onto this roof without anybody noticing. So when I turn around now, no one's noticed. I don't have to do anything but wait, and I can be at the end of the level. But I decide to use overdrive and kill them, because this is a first-person shooter, and I'm going to shoot. But there you go. A potentially very difficult segment, in some cases, trivialized by just good positioning and an understanding of the spawns. I really like this mission. I had the privilege of watching Kime get lost on it. That was fun. Bless him. This whole level looks the same though, so I can completely understand. As I fight with an invisible wall, always fun. But now all we need to do is leave, and there's going to be some exposition here, guys, so we're going to hook a left here, get to the exit, and then we're going to be warping back to where we need to go. And that's the end of the Goliath plant. Hopefully some of those strategies can help you out if you had any problems. I also saw Darkside Phil fall through the graphics in that dungeon, so if you fall through the graphics, you get my condolences. But there you go, there's Lusum. We now have access to this vehicle. This is the vehicle you need to drive towards the final mission. It's called Xerxes 3.
Good news, Walker.
Do not worry if you drive all the way to the final mission without the car. You can summon the car from any place as long as you have some money. I did that on my first run like an idiot. And I kind of got a bit annoyed at the game that it let me do it too. Because the game tells you, we really should bring the big car for this mission. You should totally, like, bring the big car, dude. It's really, really adamant in telling you things like that. And then it lets you drive all the way to the end without it, which is fucking stupid in my opinion. I did learn an important lesson, though. The 4 authority turrets that attack you there when you're on foot can be killed as a man, because I did it on foot without a vehicle. And here we go, Project Dagger. Dagger? That's not how that's said. But there you go. Project Dagger, the ultimate. Lack of pronunciation. No, Project Dagger, the mission you've all been waiting for. The final mission of the game that's going to settle the score finally, and remove that foul taste from Rage 1 where the game just kind of ended for no reason. Find General Cross, and we now have a forced vehicle section. That would probably be really insane if you didn't do it in a vehicle. I should totally come back here and try to do this on foot. See if that works. That could be fun. Maybe when the DLC comes out, guys, if anybody wants me to cover it, I can come back and have a crack at it, see if it's worthy, see if it can be done. But the problem you'll face here is the gun auto locks. Whenever the gun goes blue, it's the game stealing my aim, and I don't like it too much. Also, you need to shoot the tanks before they shoot whatever it is he's trying to shoot there, because it does a ton of damage. I think personally the vehicle sections are the worst part of this game, but I do appreciate a good vehicle section done correctly. I would cite Far Cry Blood Dragon at the beginning, with Long Tall Sally in the helicopter. That is a vehicle section done right. I would cite the Brumac, you know, like at the end of Gears of War 2, to just the power fantasy of riding a Brumac. Vehicle section done right. This particular vehicle section, I don't think it's as good as it could be, personally. But what can you say, you know? It's not too long, it doesn't overstay its welcome. You can also dodge to the left and the right with this vehicle if you want to, but I don't really do that at all. I just want to get out of it, if I'm honest. The reason I don't cover driving games on my channel, guys, is because I take almost no pleasure in them. I like arcade racing games sometimes, you know, that have weapons and stuff and creative courses and cool features, but it's one of those genres I don't have it in me to play, and sometimes I feel a bit bad because I might be missing out on something awesome. But I've never liked cars. Like, I've never been a big car guy. I only ever looked at max power for the tits. It's just not my thing. And I am jealous of people that can enjoy those genres that I don't enjoy. I'm always jealous of that because I truly do feel like I'm missing out on an experience that I could be having if my tastes weren't so particular. But you can't like everything, you know? And the world would be boring if we all liked everything. Anyhow, let's move forward with our guns on. Take on some of these fellas, do what we can. I wonder what this game looks like in 4K. I bet it's quite a beautiful game. And you wouldn't need too much hardware to run it probably that way too. I wonder what it would be like to get 4K at 60. Probably not too bad, right? 4K at 120 might be a bit more difficult. I wonder if Darkside Phil's PC could run this game while capturing. Wouldn't that be a beautiful circle to come full circle with? Good old DSP is obsessed with the notion of coming full circle with things. I don't really know why he is, because all it does is prove how much he hasn't evolved and how he hasn't improved. So if anything, coming full circle is kind of an uncomfortable mirror showing him his mediocrity, in my opinion. But he played the first Rage on his big PC that he spent like $4,000 on. And it was running at like 2 frames a second because he was trying to stream it at 1080p 60 while recording at 1080p 60 while playing on Ultra, and it shit the absolute bed the whole time. And it's this wonderful video of Phil realising that he's just paid $4,000 for a PC that's not going to do what he thought it was going to do. And there's something refreshingly hilarious about watching complete crisis in one person's eyes as they realise they've paid $4,000 for something that doesn't work. But if you know anything about streaming and playing video games and recording at the same time, it's incredibly intensive on your CPU to do all of those things. A lot of people use multiple machines for that kind of intensive stress of so many things happening at once, because it is difficult to do. If you want to do that, you probably have to sacrifice the fidelity of the game in some ways by turning down some settings, or maybe turning down your stream resolution but keeping the capture resolution. But fundamentally, you have to really push the best specs, the hardest they can go, to even hope to get anywhere near close to that type of stuff, because it's difficult to do outside of, you know, super rigs. And Phil just apparently didn't realise this. So if he were to play this game and try and do all of those things and the performance was dog shit again, I think that would just be a wonderful cyclical cycle of Rage cooking his ego and his arrogance when it comes to, you know, paying for a computer. I think that would be beautiful. Because let's face it, Rage 2 is seemingly quite well optimised, but I don't think it would be optimised enough to run what he wants of it. Like, you would probably need a bunch of Titans, right? Like 4 Titans, and can you have like multiple CPUs? I don't even know. I'm very ignorant when it comes to how you can set PCs up, but have a couple of overclocked like i9s in there and you might be able to do it. Who knows, maybe there's been advances in capturing and streaming that it's not as resource intensive now and it can be done a lot easier, but I just think you have to put way more in than he was willing to put in. But here we go, gotta press this button and start this next fight. There's a fight coming up in one of these rooms that's probably the hardest fight in the game to do without getting shot. It's a really interesting fight as well. Like, you see this? I love that spawn. I love when they fly in like that, but I wish they didn't recover so slowly. I wish when they landed, they immediately were active, because when they're flying in like that, you can shoot them during that parabolic arc, and it feels awesome if you track them. The only problem is, I couldn't really do a good example of it in this walkthrough, because every time I tried to track with them perfectly, I clicked out of the fucking screen. So you'll notice, when they first turned up, I shot a little bit when they were in the sky, and then I stopped. And I stopped because I knew the last few attempts I tried ended up opening the bloody calendar. Also here, guys, when you start the elevator, when you come down below this platform, it's going to spawn enemies on the adjacent one. This is like that level in Streets of Rage, if you remember it, when you're on the moving platform. Like that level in Vanquish, if you have immaculate taste in third-person shooters. Oh, we're getting talked to by General Cross, and there's a big invisible wall here. This is the room, guys. This next room is the hardest room in the game to skirt damage, because there's so many dudes firing these big AoE blasts, and there's just a lot of enemies. It also has one of those armoured fellas that I've been killing really quickly. I won't kill this one as quickly because there's so many people shooting at you, but luckily for me, if you pull back here, you have a really good position. You have the height advantage, you have the cover advantage, and you have the distance advantage. Once you get rid of all the people who are the main problems, like those ones that are glowing, you see that? That guy right there has one of the fastest projectiles in the game. He is dangerous. He's way more dangerous than all the other enemies, and there's one in each of the sides. As long as you get rid of him, you'll be fine. Everybody else is pretty standard. These guys are kind of cool. I don't know why we didn't see more of them. I think one of the areas where Rage could have really benefited is by more flying enemies. I know flying enemies are the bane of, you know, controllers when you play on console, because it can be a pain in the ass to keep up with them. But here it's a little bit different. That's the type of stuff that really gets you to test your gun skill, test your aim, and I love that kind of thing. One of the areas where I think the boss fights could have benefited is if they did test your skill when it comes to tracking and keeping on target and doing interesting things. Like, why not have a test of aim to beat a boss rather than a test of shooting on it relentlessly? Test your reflexes, test your hand-eye coordination, you know, test the things that you're sharpening when you're playing these games. But here we go, pushing forward. Moving towards the finale. We only have 5 minutes left of this walkthrough, guys. I hope you've had a good time sitting here with me, spending this last 3 hours listening to an Englishman ramble about game balance. It's quite an anticlimactic ending as well. I'm not going to promise you greater things than you're about to get. But what I can tell you is you can do the final boss without taking damage. I'm not going to do that, but it's definitely possible because I nearly did it myself. But here we go, we have another Cyber Crusher because we haven't seen these before, and this is an original and fun boss fight. Shoot him in his torso, and then go around the back and jack his backpack. I was a bit slow then, so it's probably going to regen. Yeah, that's unfortunate. But any boss that can be looped and stunned the way that I'm stunning this guy is never going to go down in the annals of history as somebody who challenged you. Because he can't, you know? He's too busy getting stunned. And I love stuns, and I love creative uses and skillful uses of stuns, but I feel like if you can just stun lock a boss, he's not a boss. He's a piece of scenery that you shoot. Like, look at this. It's so unfortunate. Like, he could really, really test you and really do cool things, but as it stands, it doesn't do anything, you know? He's like a popcorn enemy, but he's the size of a building. I'd love to understand the design behind him, and I'd love to show you what he was like when I first played the game. Because all the bullets I just shot into him wouldn't have even taken off a quarter of his chest life that stuns him. I'm not even talking about his cores, I'm not even talking about his face. He wouldn't have even had like half damage done to his stun bar. That's how durable he was when I first bumped into him. Maybe I'm secretly playing on easy, but when you look on all my saves, it says Nightmare on the autosaves, so you know. Because a lot of people like to say like, oh, this guide's not on the hardest difficulty. Well, unfortunately, autosaves don't lie, you know. But this is the Colossal Titan. I like this boss fight because it involves dodging, and any first-person shooter that has dodging and it's fair dodging is a cool idea. Unfortunately, for this game, I'm actually a big fan of curtain fire shooters, or bullet hell shooters, Danmaku shooters as they're known. I have a cave t-shirt, so dodging bullets is something that I am more than familiar with, so if you're going to only fire 3 of them at me, and a couple of ground shock waves, I'm probably not going to have the hardest time with you. And even in the first person perspective, where it's a bit tougher, I'm still going to be okay. But here is the next phase of the fight. The boss is going to summon a bunch of standard mutants that have all got extra armor on them, but our mobility is so good at this point, and our gun is such a destroyer of worlds, we don't really have to worry too much about what these enemies have to offer. We can put them down, we can get the Feltrite, we can kill them as they spawn with intelligent grenades. Like, there's really no excuse to have a problem here. And it's, once again, it's unfortunately too balanced. And that's the reason I haven't used the overdrive as much as I would have liked. These enemies are dangerous. Can you imagine if the entire platform was full of those guys? Different story. And now the boss comes back and we get to fight him again. Because if you don't do things 3 times, they don't die for good. I learnt that from Princess Peach. Here we go. Boom. So now you have to shoot his like necklace part. He's got his backpack, his little front buckle thing. And then once you've done this... By the way, those little projectiles that track after he's done his move, they do explode and they do have an AoE. So be very careful of those. But here is the second spawn. They're going to jump on the sides. And that machine that opened up in that core is also going to spin around, which... I don't know if these cores open up and release enemies, but they certainly spin around a decent amount. Here are a couple more people jumping up, but you can kill them before they finish spawning. And then boom, Mr. Laser, he's the dangerous one. You need to be careful of him. And there it was, guys. There was when I took a bullet, just then. Here's this guy, the joke that is this enemy, that unfortunately never gets any tougher, even though he's technically the strongest enemy in the game, right? He's a super soldier that has armor, and yet he's crap. And then the boss comes back for the final phase, which is his helmet. He now has a weak point on his forehead. So shoot his forehead. It takes a little bit more rounds than the last one did. Dodge the projectiles and you've won. And there you go, guys. Rage 2. No infusions, nightmare difficulty, minimal upgrades, using one weapon, the game. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did making it, and if you're checking this out and wondering if Rage 2 is worth your attention, if you enjoyed the look of the shooting, I cannot recommend it anymore. The shooting is really, really fun. Everything else suffers though. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and as always, you take care now.